All right, and welcome into the special edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. Today we will be discussing all things prop bets for the big game on February 4th. Are we allowed to say Super Bowl on a podcast, considering we're not paid or sponsored by anybody?
I have no idea.
I'm not sure either. I would say probably
seems
not.
Unlikely.
Yeah, I think we're okay. I don't think we're going to get hunted down by the FCC.
No.
Won't let me be and let me be me. Come on. Anybody remember that Eminem song? No.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways.
I grew up right outside that town.
Exactly. So, anyways, we are here in Studio A. We are hanging out with another roundtable of sorts, I guess you could say. It's the regular host, but we have a special guest, Tony Johnson, coming in. You may recognize Tony from his articles on the Vegas Squares website. He's called Betting for an Edge. Tony, we are happy to have you in and discuss some props.
Well, is this doesn't appear to be golf though, so I'm not sure if I'm legally allowed.
I think you are legally allowed to discuss whatever your heart and your money desires.
Okay, fair enough. Well, then I'm good to go then.
All right, sounds good. First initial thoughts. Obviously, we're studying the Bible here, so it's a little bit of a Bible study class. It is Sunday night, so I guess that kind of works. But I've always referred to the Westgate Superbook, their prop bets, as the Bible. So without further ado, let's dive in. We got Spike and Anthony on mics 2 and 3. Gentlemen, what's up?
Not much. How's it going? Glad to be part of this.
I'm really looking forward to the women's hockey and the Winter Olympics this year. So the rest of it, just kind of bonus at this point.
Still on there, huh? Still on.
Hey, we'll get to cover some punter stuff.
Oh, God, yes.
There may be some punting prop bets, which I know is right up Spike's alley, because there's
absolutely.
nothing Spike loves more than NCAA and NFL punters. I mean, I think
absolutely.
he's established his true loves.
Punter talk is my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, did to life.
I think he has a Johnny Hecker tattoo on his left calf. So. And what's on the right calf? Is that Matt Turk?
Heyo.
Oh, my God.
All right.
A name from the past right there.
What, Matt Turk?
Yeah.
Well, we were doing a podcast, and I thought he was still in the league.
What?
Yeah.
It's like 60.
You can punt forever, can't you? I mean, how long did Gary Anderson kick with the one bar across his face? I mean, he kicked forever. Morton Anderson.
Yeah,
That's true.
Those skill positions, and I use the air quotes, you could last forever. So you never know. Let's jump into the first prop bet of Super Bowl LII, which is what, 52?
52.
And it's the most bet prop in all of Super Bowl history, most year to year. And first time I've ever seen it with 102 as the juice, which is interesting to me. And that is the opening coin toss. Will it be heads, tails, or I think the field is 25-1. So. No,
Wow.
Well, you never know. It could land straight on the side. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, 102 each way, heads or tails. I mean, it's not necessarily what you're choosing, but talk about it, as far as, Spike, it's the most bet prop of all. Is it just because it's so easy?
Yeah, it's so easy. This is the way to get women involved that don't actually follow football or betting at all. They're just like, hey, I want to put money on the Super Bowl. You're like, oh, bet the fucking coin toss then, because it doesn't take any skill. It doesn't take any, actual research. You just pick heads or tails.
Yeah, select the side.
I actually think the best part is that it's done immediately. Like you have instant gratification. A bet is made. It's graded, and you're good to go. Like I've done it a couple of times before where you make the bet at some whatever book you're at, and then they grade it immediately, and so you have money in hand, cash in, or more likely not. Right before the kick is done.
More
it's
likely.
fantastic.
Have you ever bet heads or tails, Anthony?
I have not yet. Nor I don't think I will.
No?
Really?
I don't know.
I mean, it's pure gambling.
It is.
Is that like when you're talking about Spike for the ladies, you're talking about, what is that other prop bet they have? The over-under on the national anthem.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What is it, like 2.5 minutes this year?
I have no idea.
I think it was 120. I saw 125 seconds.
Okay, so 2 minutes.
So yeah.
So, yeah, but you're right. It gets people who are... Because, I mean, the Super Bowl has always been the casual view. Because, we're talking millions worldwide who watch this one game. And you're right. I mean, it includes the most casual of fans. And I don't mean to disrespect women, but women are generally more casual than men are watching this game. So you're right. Coin toss, national anthem kind of prop bets. It does. I like the way you said that, to kind of involve the women and the people who are just watching for the commercials.
Right,
Yeah.
especially, for us living out here in Vegas, I'm sure some of us have family that come out specifically for the Super Bowl, whether you're hosting them yourselves or if they're going to a party or something. And if they're not big sports bettors, if they're not even big sports fans, this is the way to get them wrapped in instantly.
Fair enough. That's a good assessment. Let's take a look at a couple of the bets on the first page here as we scan through the Bible. Obvious, the bet is initial thoughts on the line. It's 4.5 most places right now. From what I understand this week, you guys familiar with the World Series Let It Ride better? You remember that guy who bet on the first 6 games of the World Series?
Yeah.
I did hear about that, yeah.
Well, I guess RJ Bell, if you're not familiar with that name, he runs pregame.com. He has confirmed from the MGM Sportsbook that same bettor has placed a multi-million-dollar wager in the neighborhood of $8 million on Philadelphia's money line.
Whew.
And I remember the text you sent me the other night. You're like, how is Philly 4.5 at MGM? I'm pretty sure that's probably a good indicator.
Yeah.
That must have done it.
And especially the money line too. That's the best part about the wager, right?
Balls deep.
Yeah, exactly. If you go for it, go all the way. So yeah,
For the gusto, yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's, initial thoughts. We're going to do our Super Bowl show. We're going to probably record that Tuesday, have it for you on Friday or Saturday. Initial thoughts on the 4.5 line at this point.
For me, it's a relative toss-up in the sense that I'm kind of going to be probably general public here. I can't see New England necessarily throwing this thing away or losing seems unlikely, but having to lay a bunch of points with that bad of a defense and, coaching staff and in transitions, certainly I think it's pretty well known that both coordinators are going to be gone. And that definitely has something to do with it. When the guys are not there and, doing all the prep that they normally do, they're out interviewing, it's going to make it more difficult. So, I think that's a little bit underplayed too about what's going on with their coaching staff, and to me, I'm usually a guy that likes to take points anyway, but with this one, it's hard to see New England losing, but the points probably aren't enough in regards to Philly, and especially with the line movement. We're going down from 6. I know, Aaron, you said you weren't surprised to see that, but I certainly was. Mm-hmm. I would probably, if I had to, lay the points here, but I'm not confident, nor would I feel anything good about it at all.
Well, do you feel in this spot where you're talking about not being able to lay the points, I don't think 190 is too bad of a juice if you don't feel comfortable with 4.5 points.
Agreed. Yeah, that's fine. Yes, yeah. So I guess theoretically, if I had to make a bet, I probably wouldn't make the minus 190 bet. I totally agree with you, because it's just, to me, it's hard to see them losing this game. Not saying it won't be close, but to me, it's hard to see them actually losing to Philly here.
Me, I'm leaning towards the Patriots minus the points. I am confident that they're going to win. I'm pretty sure that they're going to cover as well. I could see within a touchdown. I could see within 2 scores.
It's a tough thing to say because New England hasn't won a Super Bowl by more than 6, and that was last year.
Yes,
and they had to come roaring back. We all know what happened last year. We don't need to recount that. It's a funny line. I mean, you and I talked about it because what was that pre-AFC Championship game? William Hill had this line at 7.
Yeah, the pros line before both championship games.
They gave it as a possible game line of 7 points, and I said, "Holy cow! I mean, that's crazy." I would take the Eagles at that point. And then immediately after the blowout, if you want to call it, the 38-7 victory by Philadelphia, this line opened up at 5.
Yeah,
so
maybe 5.5.
Maybe 5.5 in some spots, but it's immediately Tony and I talked, and I said, he said he was surprised at the line movement. I said my initial thoughts were the public is going to salivate all over Philly's 38-7 win, and it didn't shock me if the line moved this way and then finally closed more towards the original line. Spike, I mean, you and I are Pats guys. What were the line movement? Did it surprise you, or do you just think it's a victim of prisoner of the moment?
It didn't surprise me at all. I figured that the money was going to be coming in hot and heavy on Philadelphia.
Such as a Patriots hate, you think?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think it's a lot of people like me that have been doubting Philadelphia. I've picked against them in both playoff games they were in. So I think it's part of it is just that they wanted to get in and, get in with the best possible line for them. And now that it's been going down, it wouldn't surprise me to see it maybe correct a little bit back the other way.
That's my thoughts too. Yeah.
As soon as the Patriots start, the line kind of stabilizes, more people come in on the Pats, and I think it closes at 5 when it's all said and done.
It's a fair assessment. We'll obviously go into more in-depth detail on our next podcast, but 2 bets that I like, not just in the Super Bowl, but I always like to bet these if they become available. And the first one I like is will either team score in the first 6.5 minutes of the game? I've been rolling with no in a lot of these, and it's been successful, although you have to lay the juice. Right now, it's 125 to say no, there will not be a score. Yes, 105. Knowing what we know about these 2 teams, it's a well-documented stat. New England has never scored in the first quarter of a Super Bowl, which...
How is that possible?
It's crazy to think, isn't it?
They've been in 20% of all the Super Bowls of all time.
All right. And, Philly, they haven't been there. None of the people on this team have been to that Super Bowl. I'm not doing in-depth research, but I believe nobody in this organization has been to a Super Bowl. The last one was in 2004. I think maybe the owner, except for that. He's not on the field at this point. So you're looking at a team of people who, with Philadelphia, have never played in a Super Bowl. So... with that being said, the first 6.5 minutes of the game could be a feeling out process. What are your thoughts on the first 6.5 minutes of the game? As far as taking the no or the yes in that point.
I think you're exactly right. I think it's a couple heavyweight boxers feeling each other out for the first couple of rounds and trying to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to play their games. I certainly like the no on this one. This is whatever team gets the ball, they're going to play conservative.
We got 2 pretty decent defenses as well.
So, you're going to be looking at a lot of back and forth, a lot of, 2.5-yard runs, and then they'll bring the play clock down, 2.5-yard run. And I could see that.
LeGarrette Blount's not on this team anymore, right? So the 2.5-yard run.
Not on the Pats. He's on the Eagles now. So.
He's on one of them.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I totally forgot. You're right. That's right. All LeGarrette does is make Super Bowls, so I forgot. Yeah, he's...
punches people, too, sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think it's just going to be...
punches people.
Slow, methodical, kind of boring to start the game, so I could see no points being scored probably in the entire first quarter, but definitely 6.5.
The only thing I'm worried about is the initial kind of shock play here and there. I haven't looked in the last few years, I'll admit that, but a couple of years ago I was studying this exact type of thing, and it seemed like there were either points scored immediately, or it was, like you said, almost like a quarter would go by and there would be no action. I can remember a few. There's been some returned kicks for touchdowns. The Bears, Colts, I remember. Yeah, it was in the rain. It was the last one I remember. But there were sometimes teams will come out and run a play action play right away, and you could get there's flags. Anything can happen. I would be more interested on the side if I know some places, although I'm surprised the Bible doesn't have it, where a score in the first 2 minutes or minute and a half of the game, and you can get a nice price on a yes there. That's usually kind of the spot that I like to go. But having only a 6.5 minute line to choose, it seems more likely for the no. But if it does happen, to me, my guess is it happens early, if not pretty much right away.
Yeah, most of the time you see score in the final 2 minutes of the game or final 3 minutes of the game or first half versus the first few.
It's more common, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the first 2 minutes of the game, you'd have to juice no pretty high. Because, with today's day and age, the touchbacks, with the exception of Belichick, he doesn't obviously utilize the touchback like most teams do.
No.
Most teams aren't getting out, trying to get out the gate. Trying for that 65-yard bomb in the first play of the Super Bowl. It would be a hell of a surprise. But the no would have to be pretty juiced on a bet you're talking about. So
it is. No, that's what I'm saying. I want the yes at a large plus money line. That's
okay.
What
I
would want. Yeah, no, I'd want the other side.
6-1 kind of.
Exactly. Something large, if not even higher than that. Because I think it's relatively known that teams trying to start slow. So I think you could get a good price. That's all I'm saying. But it's not offered, so we shouldn't care about it. So it's fine.
So you never know where it could find. Yeah.
Okay.
Any prop bet that's available anywhere, we can.
Okay, everything is.
The Bible is
like
gospel, but it's not the only. Remember, they had a King James version. So. Scoring 3 straight times in a game is not something we really pay attention to through the middle of the game, but it is a bet I've always liked to keep track of in regular season play. A lot of times, especially the last time I saw it was when Tennessee got up 7-0 on New England, and when Minnesota got up 7-0 on Philly. And then both teams routed off 35-plus straight points. It's not something you think about as a bet. Most of the time you get back and forth in the Super Bowl, teams keep it close. But even last year, 28-3. The Patriots scored 3 times in a row or more. I think it was 4 in a row with the field goal.
I believe that.
So, the yes at 180, it does include safeties too, which is, I think that's a new thing for Westgate. I think they were excluding them last year. So you're talking about extra points, 2-point conversions, TDs, field goals. 3 straight times the yes minus 180. It seems a little bit high, but this is a situation where the Patriots, Spike, you and I have talked about it. The Patriots have gotten down early, in two straight playoff games. So to have to come back and score 3 straight times doesn't seem like such a crazy thing to think about, in their world. And if Philly gets down, if New England does what you and I hope they do, is to get up early, Philly also falls into this kind of category. So Tony, scoring 3 straight times isn't as much of an anomaly as you think.
I agree. I think it's one of those general misnomers until you really think about it. Exactly what you said, and look at the numbers, and it happens on a relatively regular basis. I think the 180 is probably about what it should be. It
seems like a little bit of a bargain, in my opinion.
It
Especially,
could be.
Just looking at. I don't want to dive too far back in the reserve, but looking at the Baltimore Ravens 49ers Super Bowl, do you remember when the lights went off?
I do.
Yeah.
And you remember when San Francisco came roaring back and made it a game?
Oh, they sure did, yeah.
This prop bet, to me, kind of almost goes hand in hand with the manipulation of games, if you could say. When one team gets so far down, how many people do you think probably turn off the Super Bowl or quit, watching it? That affects viewers, that affects advertisers, that affects revenue. So blowouts in the Super Bowl, while in the 80s happened so much, in today's day and age doesn't happen because there's so much money on the line. The NFL can't afford for you to take your eyes off. So a team getting back into a game almost starts to get a little fishy. When the lights went off, don't get me wrong. Did you watch Super Bowl? The Baltimore was dominating them.
They were.
Oh, absolutely.
Complete and utter domination. The lights go off. And all of a sudden, San Francisco finds a team. To me, it starts to get a little weird. So
yeah, you could almost say Baltimore was playing lights out football, and then the lights went.
Hey-o! There it is. You know what? That was terrible. Go to your corner. But I'll let you finish your thoughts on it.
No, that's I was pretty much it. I'm not sure about the whole conspiracy theory of everything. I'm not.
If you gamble enough in Las Vegas, you start to look at those kind of things.
Fair enough. I understand it. Again, I'm not going to go there because that's probably not going to accomplish what we need.
We don't knocking on our door like, "Are you the Vegas Squares?" Who's asking?
Yeah, exactly. Again, to me, I'm not sure where the value is. If I could see an argument for both sides here, I really could. But
sure.
But the one thing I think then we've already figured out that 3 straight scores is not some sort of crazy thing. I think some people will take an initial look and be like, 3 scores in a row, that's like never happens. No, that's relatively common, especially in a game like this. Especially we've seen both of these teams, get down and or up early, or get up significantly, a lot, by the third, fourth
requiring
quarter.
3 scores to come back.
Come back, exactly. So that's. Yeah, it just seems the line seems about right to me, in my opinion.
Spike, I'll send this one to you. Will either team score in the final 2 minutes of the first half?
That's the Patriots' bread and butter. They're the double dip where they score at the end of the first half and then take the opening kickoff at the beginning of the second half. So I could easily see it, and it certainly feels like the type of thing that could and will happen unless you are coached by the Jacksonville Jaguars staff who decided to take a friggin' knee instead of actually...
And you were still, just riled up about that.
I don't understand why I'm not seeing articles calling for the heads of everybody on the coaching staff there. It boggles the mind.
Because that coaching staff got them their first AFC title in a decade, so they get a pass. But I get what you're saying.
Pull
the wedgie out.
I absolutely think it is... I don't want to say certainty, but it's a very high probability. Even the line at -300 doesn't scare me. I'm happy to to put a couple of bucks on that one. That feels pretty okay to me.
So here's one I saw looking at the different prop bets that I'm sure may get a little bit more increased money because of what I see on social media all the time. Oh, the refs give the Patriots the game. The refs let the Patriots back in the game. Blah, 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 this. First penalty of Super Bowl 52. First accepted penalty. The Eagles are laying 125. The Patriots are plus 105. So when I see that, I can see somebody with unobjective or objective eyes saying, well, the Patriots never get called or you never get flagged for penalties. They only got one penalty in the AFC title game, so I'm laying the money on the Eagles. So that penalty, or that prop bet kind of made me chuckle a little bit.
I'm actually leaning towards the other way. I would almost want to take the Patriots in this one because, I mean,
buck the trend.
Yeah, I mean,
go against the mainstream.
Plus, you're not laying the juice. You're game plus money at this price too. I mean,
that's what I thought too. I was thinking, everybody's going to have such a hard on for the fact that the Patriots never get any, never get called, never get flagged. The refs help them out. I mean, remember last week? I mean, the referee who was in the middle of the touchdown celebration. That's strange, but it was.
It wasn't in the middle of this. It was the touchdown was scored.
I'm aware.
Was a scrap that was about to happen.
I'm aware.
The ref came in to make sure that nothing happened.
Dude, you and I are on the same page. My point being is perception is reality to these people.
The problem is that we have like 6 listeners, and one of them's going to get pissed off about the fact that he thinks that we're okay with refs celebrating with the Patriots.
It's only 16%.
Wait, let me see which one's Spike's. Spike only said we have 6 listeners. Which one is his radio dial or his volume dial? Fuck that guy. Anyways, so yeah, I found this prop bet to be a little bit of chuckle in my mind because I can just see all of the NFL hard-ons. The Patriots never get a call. We're laying the juice, and you're right. I can see the books cleaning up a little bit.
That's probably why the next one down, the most penalty yards for the game, the Eagles are even more of a favorite because I think there's obviously a lot more, variance in the first penalty of the game. That could be, relatively anything. But overall, yes, I think most people are going to be on the side of yes, exactly what you said, and/or the fact that I think historically, New England has been a little bit more disciplined in these bigger games than other teams, especially teams that have not been there before.
You stole my thunder, sir. That was exactly the point I was going to make.
So, again, whether that is good enough to make a bet or not is unknown. It just seems like this one, especially with pass interference, and you have 30, 40-yard penalties sometimes, it makes this bet kind of strange. I feel like there's just better ways to get action here than this. That's just me.
What about leads me to another prop bet on this list is the team to use the coach's challenge first. And you're talking about the aura of the shady plays with the Patriots. Could you see Peterson using they're the 130 favorite. Could you see Peterson using the challenge in this one? Being first to use the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big game. I could see him doing it. Did you mute my mic? I forgot to ask before I started talking.
No, they heard all that, unfortunately.
Yes. No, I could see it only... I don't want to say new coach panic, where he would be more apt to challenge a more borderline play than Belichick would, because I can't see Belichick challenging something unless he's 100% sure, especially when he has the direct line to Ernie the Magician, or whatever that guy's name is.
What now?
They have what's his name? Ernie...
You talking about the
replay official?
No, the mysterious guy on the Patriots staff that is like the savant that knows everything, that scouts everything.
I haven't heard this one.
Oh, yeah. Check out Patriots Ernie, and there's a whole big thing. He's like the nerdiest guy. He looks
knows
like
all the NFL rules and
yeah,
all
he
that.
looks like a high school bio teacher, basically.
Is he orange and has a tall yellow friend?
And blonde hair.
Or is not that Ernie?
No, it's not that Ernie.
Oh, okay. Got it.
God. The fuck have I gotten myself into? I have to wake up for work in like 6 hours, and this is how I'm spending my fucking time.
Yes, you are, and you love every minute of it.
But yeah, no, I just think the Patriots have the experience, the resources, and everything else. I could see the Eagles, again, I don't want to say panicking, but making a
rash decision, snap decision.
A rash decision to use a challenge first.
Now, Anthony, you talked about this prop bet, and the fact that the Eagles have a rookie kicker, and 33 doesn't sound like a large number, but the prop bet is, will both teams make a 33-yard or longer field goal? And a yes is even, the no is juiced, which surprised me because, like I said, my initial thoughts were 33 yards. That's not that long. But then you brought up the fact that, you got a rookie on a big stage kicking a field goal. And what 33 is about an extra point, and we see those get missed.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards the yes in this, just because the value. I mean, it could go either way, of course, but
let me preface this by saying all these props could go either way.
I was going to say, I was like, well, yeah.
Touche, but no.
I'm just saying, if that's your argument for everyone coming up, I mean,
It's tough.
I mean,
Funny he didn't use that on the coin flip one.
yeah. What are the odds? Like 50-50 or? So, anyways, but
I mean, with this one, I'm leaning towards yes, because if they miss one for some reason, they could always get another attempt and make that. That's why I'm leaning towards that. I mean,
I don't even know what it.
That's good analysis.
yeah, I mean,
It's like Tom Brady threw an interception. Well, yeah, I mean, he could drop back in the first one. The guy catches it, but then but if he doesn't catch it, then he drops it, and that's a no.
246.
You're making politician style prop bets here. Yes, they're allowed to make multiple attempts at the field goal. So you like the yes because of the fact that
it's even money and
it's a better juice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think scoring has to do with this as well. We should probably goes back to evaluating how many touchdowns, how much scoring you think maybe in this game, since obviously you have to have a touchdown to have a PAT. So my guess is if you are in the camp that this is going to be out of a lower scoring variety, you're going to probably obviously want to have more be the no side, and if you think it's much higher scoring, then of course I think the yes makes more sense. So that would be where I would go at it if I was trying to figure out what to do here.
Even with both teams having pretty solid defenses, I think their offenses are good enough to get them in the range of these 33-yard field goals. So I like the yes for more of a testament to both teams' defenses. New England, how many times do we say bend but don't break? That's just their mantra. That's the way they've operated for the better part of a decade. And I mean, Philly's no slouch. They're a fantastic defense as well. Look what they've done, this playoffs. So I think both offenses can get to a point on these defenses where 33-yard field goal attempts. There may be a couple for each team. So yes, I like the yes at even money. The no kind of baffles me because you've been in this industry. We've been in this betting long enough in Vegas that I initially look at it thinking yes is good money and 33 yards is not that far, but the no being juiced kind of makes me wonder where their heads are.
Yeah, I mean, and we're also indoors too, so that certainly does help. My guess is if we looked at Super Bowls throughout history that were in a dome and not, I mean, that's...
Gostkowski stoinked one last year, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
So he stoinked an extra point and a field goal, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it just the field goal? Or was it just...
No, you're right. You're right.
I think he bricked both.
Was it both? Okay, I don't remember.
I think he definitely bricked an extra point because it was supposed to be 28-10 going in the fourth quarter, and it was, going early in the fourth, and it was only 28-9. But I think he bricked a field goal early in the game in that spot. So I mean, in Gostkowski, he's been fantastic in his career, but lately he's had a little bit of the yips in some certain situations. So,
I'm actually leaning towards the no on this one, specifically for what you mentioned before, where the Patriots' defense is bend don't break. And I can see Philadelphia getting close enough that they're never in a spot where they have to attempt a field goal from that far.
Fair enough. That's a good point, too, because that leads me to another prop bet I saw. And Anthony, we talked about this off the air. The shortest touchdown over under 1.5 yards.
I think this one could go either way.
Funny. That's what he said too. Yeah, he could. He said it could go either way. Sorry, bro. You opened yourself up for that one. But shortest touchdown over under 1.5 yards. I'll start with the other Anthony and go with Tony.
Yeah, I saw that one too, and I've also made.
It's your LeGarrette Blunt prop right here, isn't it?
This is exactly what he's made for. Yes, I've made this bet before, more so to losses than wins. Not surprisingly, it's
a hard one to assess.
Other games. It is exactly.
Could go either way.
It's pretty good. That won't be the last time that happens.
No, I'm sure we'll hear that in the podcast.
We're going to beat that to death.
Absolutely, for sure. I don't have. I hate to be like in that middle range here where I don't have a specific answer per se. Because again, I have not been good at this historically. So
what do you think's going to happen? We'll fade that.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, listen to me and then do the exact opposite. I see my own personal take is seeing this as more of a slugfest sort of elite passing the ball up and down scoring game. So coming from that perspective, to me, there's going to be more of a grinded out type style when teams are in the red zone. And if that's going on and you get to a point where you can get in a goal to go situation, obviously you have to get close enough to the one, of course, but
pass interference will help out with that.
And I was just going to say that too. Yeah, exactly. So you get some sort of pass interference play, and then it goes at the one immediately. I like the yes, or I should say I like the under here, but I should be faded on this.
You should be faded, but the under is actually 140 on the juice.
I know.
What are your thoughts, Tony, or Anthony, on the 140? The fact that it's more juiced because of all the things Tony just said. God, I got Anthony and Tony and Anthony. I can't keep them straight. And they're both wearing red. I got no differentials here. All right, Anthony, what do you think about the under being juiced a lot more?
It's mainly probably because that, like Tony was saying, that pass interference call puts it right on the line. Most of the times in that situation, you probably run it in or play action. And
most of the time, you're probably running or passing.
No, running it in or doing a play action kind of pass.
I want to see a Nick Foles naked bootleg. That's what I want to see to get the under for Tony there.
Might take a long time for him to get in the end zone, but
he might get it.
He might.
Maybe they get to the one in the first 6.5 minutes and he runs a naked bootleg and you actually get the win because it took him 45 minutes.
It's going to take him a while. He's one of the slower ones out there, yeah.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards the over in this one.
Okay, so over 1.5 yards
yes,
is plus money at that point.
Yes, I like the plus money on that. Plus, I think in 1 to the goal situations, I think both defenses will show up in this.
That's a good assessment, I guess. I mean, that's like you said, it's throwing darts at the wall at that point because the pass interference and penalties like that, the goal to go, the half the distance creates so much of the issues with betting this specific prop bet because it's really hard without a penalty to get to the exact 1 yard line. So, I mean, if you're in the 1 yard line, you're usually stretching, reaching. It's really hard to get tackled at the one. It's a weird bet because so many different factors are involved with this. I don't know which way to look on that one. I would probably lean with the plus money at that point too, and just fade Tony because he told me to.
Yes, correct. That is, I agree with all of this.
Spike, real quick. Let's roll back just a second here. Tom Brady throw an interception. Yes, plus 115. No, minus 135. Just your quick thoughts.
Yeah, I mean,
he threw 2 last Super Bowl.
I could easily see it happening.
Or not happening.
Yeah. No, I think in playoff games, for as good as Brady has been, I think I don't want to say stretches himself too much because that gets into the whole pliable conversation, and I don't want to bring up the ghost of John Gruden again.
Does he start to in his older age or in his these years start to get that gunslinger mentality? It seems a little bit.
Yeah, he's been told he's a god so many times he starts to believe in himself and that he can do anything he wants. I would feel I will preface this by saying I'm not betting this one either way.
No, I know,
but yeah, no. Quick thought says this is happening.
And also to back that up, you and I have talked about this, and it's the kind of the Patriots. Their MO, the first kickoff by Stephen Gostkowski result in a touchback. I mean, the no is is plus 120, which surprises me given the fact that they never kicked for touchbacks.
That's monumentally stupid, and I'm betting my entire house on that.
All right, you guys heard it. Fate alert.
Wow.
And we do have a spare bedroom, but you can't stay here if you lose your house.
That's one that the Westgate got wrong. Gostowski doesn't kick touchbacks.
Fair enough.
It's interesting. I've seen the statistics on Gostowski, and he is definitely in the bottom of the league. I don't know where he is this year, but he's been towards the bottom for a while. I think just for strategic purposes or what have you. But it's the Super Bowls are very odd. Do we know anything about Gostowski in Super Bowls if they've kind of let it go a little bit more then, or has it always been sort of a kick it to a certain point, kind of like they do during the regular season? Do we know?
I mean, it's certainly something I'd have to look at one way or the other.
Okay.
But I know that since the touchback has been moved up to the 25-yard line,
right.
Belichick or the team has been not kicking touchbacks.
That's relatively recent too. I don't even think the Falcons one, yes, but I don't think the Seattle one, that rule was even in place.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I think even during the Seattle Super Bowl, I think it was still the 20-yard line.
I believe so, yeah.
So it's really a tough stat to really look at over the course of one game.
Okay, yeah, so, I didn't know if there were multiple. I couldn't remember when the
No, yeah, I hear you. Yeah. It's just an interesting thing because when you watch regular season and postseason games, Belichick prides himself and takes pride in the fact that he can kick it down to the 3 and make you get back to the 25, which is obviously a perfect situation for them because odds are you're not getting back to the 25. If you can kick it high enough and far enough, that kickoff team's going to get down to you. So you're right. This is kind of an interesting thing, the fact that Gostowski resulting in a touchback on his first kickoff is plus money on the no. I thought that was a bit interesting in my opinion. So, but it could go either way. I know. We should settle down on that a little bit.
Maybe one every 20 minutes or so. But yeah.
And I see if there's no kickoff, all bets are refunded.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a weird thing to write. Like, how is that not happening?
If he gets hurt in pregame or something like that.
Oh, okay, just a specific.
Because he's going to kick off at least once if he's healthy. Yeah. So it has to be.
It could be an onside kick, or it could be.
Well, I think an onside kick would count.
Yeah,
that would count.
That'd be kickoff, absolutely.
If they came out and onside kick in the first game, I think that the no would hit in that point.
For sure.
Because it's not a touchback.
Somebody kickoff.
Now, I guess this is a question, and I don't know the NFL rulebook enough. Does a team actually have to kick off on that opening kickoff, or can they do like a free kick like they would after a safety, where they would bring out the punter and let him kind of drop kick it to himself?
Like the Flutie extra point that one year?
Yeah. That's actually the first Patriots game I ever went to, was the Flutie drop kick.
The Flutie drop kick?
Oh, nice.
But, no, I honestly don't know. And this is, again, I don't know the rulebook well enough to know, like, is there a rule that says that on an opening kickoff like that, it has to be the standard opening kickoff?
Well,
I don't know either.
In fairness to the Westgate, I believe they wrote it first kickoff by Stephen Gostowski, so he actually has to kick the ball.
Okay.
So that would, and I don't think Bill Belichick would use the Super Bowl as a time to start implementing the strangest rules.
If there's anybody that's going to do it.
But yes, if there's anybody that's going to do it, it would be the hoodie himself.
Way to mute your phone, Mr. Professional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's either on silent. It's either on silent or on ring. It could go either way. Sorry. Okay, that's it. That's the last one. Sorry.
It's amateur hour around here.
Good one though.
I'm the first one. It's funny. I'm the first one before the podcast. Everybody's phone's off. Everybody's computer, and then look at me, this fucking guy.
What's the over/under on the number of times that we're going to use that joke for the rest?
Can that be a prop bet? Can you bet that at the Westgate? I feel like I have an advantage.
5.5 sounds like a good line.
I feel like I could control that wager.
Hey, still can bet it. It's like WWE.
Yeah, that's always a weird one to me. The WWE, like, it's a scripted TV show, but you can actually make bets on it. So
right, the crib sheets are out online if you know where to look. That tells you who is going to win.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting. We'll have to look at that later in another podcast.
They offer some lines too for award shows and things like that, and there's some knowledge beforehand of who's going to win as well. That I think.
I thought you couldn't bet that stuff unless it was an on-field.
Yeah, it's not in Nevada. You wouldn't be able to, but the offshore books.
Yeah, the offshore books. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
but it can go either way.
Right.
We're pushing the over on that prop bet. I can tell you that. All right, initial thoughts. I'll go around the room. First score of the game will be touchdown or other. Touchdown is minus 160.
Other. I just
No, that was it. I was just looking.
Yeah.
That was it.
No, I like the other in this situation. I think it will be a field goal. I think one of the defenses will kind of bend but not break, kind of the Patriots motto.
I'm taking the other, but I can't find the line on that. What's the price?
140 for the other plus and 160 minus for the touchdown.
Yeah, other.
I agree with that one. I'd take the other on that one as well.
So do you fade if we all agree on something? Is it a definite fade, I assume?
Hey, our tagline is tail us or fade us. The choice is yours. So.
Okay.
But when you come out with your bets and preface, you should fade this. Then
Take it to the window and light it on fire.
Yeah, that's another one we have. Take it to the window and light it on fire.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah.
So your bend but don't break mentality, Skype leads me. Skype.
Wow, that's a new one.
Skype. Oh, how did I come up with that? Spike, your bend but don't break mentality on defenses leads me to this prop bet, and it's the longest touchdown of the game. It's 110 both ways, 44.5. What do you think, Skype?
Not gonna say it.
We should do it when we introduce Skype. When we introduce Spike, we should use the. Have you ever used Skype, the application?
Yeah.
When somebody's calling you, it's like do do do.
Yeah, it makes it weird. Yeah.
Should be like, "What's up, Spike? Welcome to the podcast." And his intro music should be do 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 do.
I mean, you're the one responsible for editing this thing, so
Yeah.
you can,
Fair
Get it
enough.
done.
you can add that.
All right, that's gonna happen.
All right.
It could go both ways. I might not do it. All right, 44.5.
Yeah, I guess I'll lead it off.
Yeah, Spike's over there throwing up in the corner. I'm sorry, Skype. My bad.
This again, I just based on how I'm thinking that generally the game is going to go. I think it's going to be more of a grind it out sort of game. These type of bets tend to go like there's a lot of long scores, more than people sometimes think. General public wise, it just seems like a huge number, but it really isn't. Although all that being said, I do like the under. I do think there's going to be a lot of more play to the clock type game. Doug Peterson throughout this year, at least from what I've seen, I've watched, I don't know, maybe half the games that Philly's played, has not taken a lot of risk in spots where he thinks he has the best of it. Where if he feels that he's in a good position or his team is significantly better on one side of the ball, he calls a relatively conservative game from what I've seen. So to me, this is an under. I'm not in love with it, but it is certainly one of the first things we've talked about that I could legitimately make a bet on.
The thing I think people don't take into account in this spots are special teams and defensive scores. Sure. Because there's nowhere in this prop bet specifically that prefaces must be an offensive touchdown. Right. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like last year, this same prop bet was in place. And it actually hit the over based on, I forget the guy's name, but the Falcon defender pick six off of Tom Brady. I think a lot of people, when they go to the window, will think exactly what you're saying and not take that into account.
Understand.
Do you think these defenses, or these special teams, the intangibles from both of those sides have any effect on this line?
Special teams, no, but defenses, yes, I would say, especially towards the over with like a pick six or a fumble.
I could see a Nick Foles scoop and score, getting to the quarterback and picking something like that. So 44.5 is an interesting total because you're right. From an offensive standpoint, with the exception of Brandon Cooks and Alshon Jeffrey, there's not really a lot of deep threats. But New England kind of prides themselves on the dink and dunk, which is what we all know as their bread and butter. But I'd say about 3-4 times a game, they like to take a shot at Cooks.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was going to make, that I don't see Philadelphia being able to do this. I do see New England being able to do it. Now, whether or not I like the bets, I can't say that I would bet yes on or that I would bet the over on this. I think I have to stick with the under. But if it does happen, it's New England's, it's Brady to Cooks that pulls it off.
Let's look at an interesting prop bet based on the tempo and the tone of the game. Both teams have played some interesting games this playoffs. The Patriots, I think both of them have a blowout and both of them have a close game. The Patriots blew out Tennessee, but then had a nail biter with Jacksonville. On the flip side, the Eagles had a nail biter with Atlanta and then blew out Minnesota. So another prop bet I find interesting in this spot, based on not a lot of information that helps you one way or the other, but the largest lead of the game by either team is 14.5 points. The half is a funky one right there, but leading this game by more than 2 touchdowns, do we see potentially that being available to either side? As far as the over, the under. If you think it's a close game, obviously you want to stay under, but it's kind of an interesting prop with that hook there.
Yeah, I mean, and to just piggyback kind of some of the stuff from earlier, I see it as a relatively close game per se, and I wouldn't necessarily know who I would think would get out to an early lead. I think both teams are certainly capable of it. Based on how I think the game is going to go, I would take the under, 14.5 largest lead, but totally understand the other side. And it's not like anything I'm super excited about.
Right.
But I also think that we've seen a lot of large leads now recently too. In both past playoff games this year and then of course the Super Bowl last year and a few others, that there might be some more of people leaning towards the side of, well, these leads just sort of happen, but then people come back and that's just the way it is. Well, that's not necessarily always the case either. So again, based on this game and sort of how I randomly think it's going to happen, I would take the under, but no confidence really, or not that much at least.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this, if I were to take the over, would be Philly getting out to an early lead, or a New England Patriots blow. What was that?
Jeez, that wasn't a fart. That was just me moving.
Oh,
I mean, I thought it could have gone either way.
I can see Philly getting out to an early lead, which is exactly what Jacksonville did. Okay, granted, it wasn't over 14.5 points. Or if New England's blowing them out, I can see this being over 14.5 as well. So,
like Tony said, I kind of like the under in this situation. I see it kind of.
Is any of that based on last year? The fact that everybody's going to think, 28-3, 28-3. I have a feeling a lot of these bets will be based on last year's Super Bowl.
Absolutely. I mean, take a look at another one, the overtime bet, that dramatically changed since last year.
Mm-hmm. The first overtime game in Super Bowl history last year.
Yeah, I mean, I like the under in that largest lead by either team just because I think it'll be more of a chess match, kind of back and forth style. Pick certain spots where you're doing a lower risk instead of trying to turn the ball over. Or you always want to end a drive in a kick, whether it's a punt, a field goal, or a touchdown, an extra point.
And this is a 110 juice on both sides, so essentially this is your classic heads or tails matchup, Spike. So I wanted to say Skype again. So this is your classic heads or tails matchup. I mean, if you think one way or the other, you're not getting plus money and you're not having to risk any more than the other side.
Right. So the question becomes, do you think that a team's defense is going to fail so dramatically that they would allow 3 scores in a row? Mm-hmm. And I don't think I think the Eagles' defense is good enough to prevent something like that. I think the Patriots' defense is good enough and well coached enough to prevent something like that. So I'm not crazy about having a 14.5 point lead here.
Yeah, that hook's definitely an interesting one, going at a 14.5. You talked about this earlier in the podcast. The Patriots' mantra of getting points in the end of the first, getting points in the start of the second. The team to score last in the first half. You got Patriots minus 130 in that spot.
Right, and that seems to make a lot of sense to me. And that's, if I'm betting that one, which I'm not convinced that I am, I'm taking the Patriots all day on that.
Yeah, I mean, even laying the money at that point, you have to look at a situation where they do that because they defer. They always defer, and in the first half, so then naturally the other team usually has to take the ball, which by the flow of the game, usually that ends up being the Patriots having the ball, last in the first half and first in the second half. So that's a good bet to probably make that the Patriots will score last. But then again, you also have Gostkowski, who if he has to try a long field goal, all bets are off. No pun intended. But here's your overtime bet that you were talking about. The yes is already down to plus 600, and we're talking about after the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. So it's an interesting. I don't know what it was last year, but I can definitely tell you. I think you say it was 1,200.
I think it was 10-1, maybe 15-1 in some spots or something. Yeah.
So now they're protecting their butts on that part.
Yeah. I like the no in the Super Bowl.
How do you like the over/under on interceptions by both teams at 1.5? The over 1.5 is actually getting plus money. Considering we have two quarterbacks, like you talked about, he's been told he's a god so many times. He likes to get the ball in windows that maybe normal quarterbacks wouldn't take a shot at.
Right, he's becoming.
And then we have Nick Foles,
more and more Brett Favre-like every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is to me, if betting it, especially getting a plus side versus a minus side, which we're always trying to get some value with money. I would definitely take the over here. It just seems, as you said, depending on how the game goes, it doesn't really matter whether one team, whichever team is up or down. I feel like, yeah, both quarterbacks are very willing to throw the ball in places that maybe not necessarily should be, and going back to the Nick Foles factor, we don't really know what we're going to get at all. I think we have a pretty good idea of how Brady's going to play, but Nick Foles, is he going to look like he did after the first couple possessions in the Minnesota game and throughout, or is he going to look like he did in weeks 14, 15, and 16? So it's tough to know. These big games are very hard, but clearly, if you want to be on one of the sides, I mean, Foles could get this over by himself. I mean,
Sure.
that would not surprise me at all.
And Philadelphia's defense is good enough to get one out of Brady or maybe
Definitely.
more.
Yeah. Definitely.
So that's why the over with plus money kind of strikes me as odd because you have, like you said, you have Foles as Foles. We know what we got. He's average at best, even given his track record, not just his last few games.
He could be very bad though. Like he's played in games this year where they were playing to win and it was going all out, and he was like legit bad.
Right. I think
just saying. I mean,
the flip side of that is, I think, if this is going to be a battle in the trenches, then A, how much are these quarterbacks actually going to throw, and B, how much are going to be the, sort of in the middle, or, the higher percent, or, what the fuck am I trying to say?
Double coverage, triple coverage.
Yeah, like double coverage type, further down the field, 15, 20 yards downfield as opposed to 5 yards, where they are more likely to get picked off, or they're at least more exposed at that point.
And that's what kind of surprises me because, we're talking about two great defenses or two pretty good defenses, and you have the over 1.5 interceptions is plus 120, and you have the over 1.5 fumbles lost by both teams is plus 150. So Vegas, or the Westgate specifically, doesn't think there's going to be a lot of turnovers in this game.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at some of the games that Foles has played, he does cough the ball up. He loses the ball, but the team recovers it. So I think that's probably where they're going with this kind of thing, where that, who on the Patriots actually fumbles? Dion Lewis, maybe?
Did last week.
Yeah.
He's had a few, yeah.
But
not a ton.
It really doesn't happen almost ever.
Right.
And then Philadelphia. So essentially it would be, do you think Philadelphia is going to fumble the ball and lose the ball twice?
They use a lot of backs, too, Philly. So I think there's some unknown there as well. I mean, Clement is a relative newcomer, rookie maybe, I'm not sure. And then they use Blon and Ajayi, and I think there might even be a fourth guy that gets
Smallwood
in there once in a while.
sometime.
Yes. From, I think, West Virginia guy. So, yeah, I mean, it's
Not,
kind of a
it's
thing
not
too.
it's okay as a last name, but it's not okay as a nickname. I can tell you that.
Speaking from experience?
Oh yeah. Interesting prop I like as well in this spot. If you expect a close game, like we talked about, is will the game be tied at any point after 0-0? And the yes is no, or excuse me, the yes is no. The yes is 110 and the no is 130 minus. It's an interesting thing. If you expect a close Super Bowl, or if you expect Philly to make this a game, there's a potential that, and it has some stipulations. You can't, for example, if it's 6-0 Eagles, the Patriots score a touchdown to make it 6-6 before the extra point, that doesn't actually count. If they miss the extra point, then yes, that would be tied. But if they make the extra point, they go up 7-6. That's not a winning bet. So there are some, a little bit of, side notes on that. But it's an interesting prop bet in the situation that, even if you think that the blowout is imminent or or if there's a tie score, or if there's a close game, having an exact tie score after the initial 0-0 is kind of an interesting prop bet, in my opinion.
No, I absolutely agree. I'm leaning towards the yes in this one. I think these teams kind of stand ground defensively, but allow a little yardage, and both teams to try reasonable field goals and convert those.
So you think they'll tie with field goals, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or potentially they give up one kind of fluke kind of touchdown, whether it be a defensive touchdown or like a special teams.
So you talked about this game being close when we talk about the under 14.5 point leads. So you're saying that this game, for most of the game, could be being tied or small leads one way or the other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you feel like a yes on the proposition is probably the better bet, just because you're getting the plus.
I definitely like the plus, and I mean, you never know; it can go in overtime as well. So,
yeah, I think those two bets are very correlated. If you're on the under 14.5 camp, you pretty much have to be on the yes camp. I would assume it would be difficult to not be on both sides there. That just the way I would evaluate it.
So I was looking at the next prop. I hadn't intended on putting this in the podcast, but just because of the byline, I have to read this. The props worded as, will there be a lead change in the fourth quarter? And the byline, the tag is, it just makes me laugh. A lead is defined by having more points than your opponent.
Really? When did that change?
I missed that one.
I was just like, I'm reading it, I'm like, is there something I'm missing? Because sometimes you read something, you're like, I'm missing something. But I mean, I'm pretty sure a lead has always been defined by having more points than your opponent.
I can actually see why they do this.
Okay.
Because imagine a scenario where it's 27-20 New England. They're up 27-20. Philadelphia comes in and they score a touchdown. They make it 27-27. And then New England comes back and they take the lead again. Does that count as a lead change?
Well, the other team was never in the lead, but I see what you're saying. Why they have
New England,
they have to disclaimer it?
So
yes,
they have to have that. Yeah, that's what comes with living with an attorney, is that you get to know all these little nuances.
I can see that. Yeah.
Now on the flip side is the question. Same question. If it's 27-20 New England, Philadelphia scores to make it 27-27, and then kicks a field goal to go up 30-27. Does that constitute a lead change? I think that's, as I'm reading this more, because yes, the Patriots were in the lead, but then they tied it. So then does that, when Philadelphia then becomes ahead 30-27, does that constitute a complete lead change? Or is that just they've moved from tied to in the lead?
That's not a lead change. So to the way I see it as no.
And I think that's why they write this lead as defined by having, it's just initial thought was like, duh.
Right.
No.
So, they have to move to put these, especially with the game being tied. I mean, if Eagles are up 6-6 and, James White punches one in, if the Eagles are up 6-0, James White punches one in, it's 6-6, but they still have a point pending. So that's not a tie either. So these little disclaimers definitely
are there for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an interesting.
This isn't their first rodeo.
No, of
writing
course.
this Bible. So
they're smarter men than we are. That's why we're the ones chasing their money.
Exactly.
Initial thoughts: will at least one quarter be scoreless? We talked about the Patriots in the first quarter of games, of Super Bowls, but the yes is plus 280, the no is 360. So you look at all these props. You're talking about all these different things: ties, low scores, close games. Good defenses. Could we have a situation where we see a quarter with 0-0 scoring in that quarter?
I could definitely see it, especially with as good as these defenses are. It makes a lot of sense that we could see quarters that have 0 points scored. That makes a lot of sense to me. The thing that worries me is the fact that it's yes at plus 280. I mean that should send alarm bells off to anybody looking at this thing. That's, like we said, these are smarter men than us. They've got to know what they're talking about. I do like the fact that, again, they have the caveat, includes overtime quarters. So if this game has to go into a double overtime
that's pretty
for
cool.
whatever reason,
then
you're... Well, actually, no, you're not definitely seeing the...
Well, yeah, because you have to score in the overtimes.
Right. Well, no, but I mean...
But if it goes in a double overtime, that would be not necessarily.
No, that's what I was just about to
say. Based on the rules, that would not necessarily be a scoreless quarter.
Correct. That's why it's a cool caveat. I like it too. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's probably very unlikely it's going to be the second quarter or the fourth quarter. I mean, those are perennially higher scoring than much higher scoring than the first and the third.
Or at least scoring in general.
Yeah, exactly. So you're really relatively limited to half the game, to two separate quarters. It's the line, makes some sense. It's one of those I don't really ever want to lay massive amount of juice anywhere, and this is probably one of those cases where you just kind of shrug your shoulders and move on. Or if you want to put a peanut on the yes and just go for it, that seems fine too.
Now, what about the Julian Edelman prop? You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
Total number of players to have a passing attempt, over under 2.5. Over is plus 180, under minus 220. I call this a Julian Edelman prop because we saw in Super Bowl whatever it is against Seattle, and Julian Edelman, was it Edelman threw it or Amendola threw it?
It was...
I thought Edelman threw it, right?
Well, Edelman threw it, but I think you're thinking of the playoff game against the Ravens as opposed to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I had this bet in the Super Bowl last year. I remember it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I'd have to look back because I don't remember Edelman throwing in the Super Bowl. Not to say it didn't happen. I'm just...
No, you could be right at that point.
The famous play that everybody talks about...
That was in the AFC Championship, you're right.
Yeah, that was against Baltimore.
Well, that would have been a cooler prop than if I had known that.
And the reason I'm leaning towards no in this one is the fact that we have seen both of these teams use that type of play in the playoffs already, and teams tend to shy away from using the same trick play twice in the same playoff season.
Sure. And I don't think either team at this point has a non-quarterback that they feel comfortable enough in to make that kind of play, even if they considered it.
You don't think Gronkowski could throw a 40-yard bomb down the field and hit Brandon Cooks in stride?
I'm gonna lay the juice at 220 and say no.
I mean, this one could be kind of interesting because of the concussion protocol as well too. I mean, say you're or injury timeout or something like that.
Brian Hoyer or
Who is Foles back?
who's Foles' backup? If Brian Hoyer has to come into this game, or Philly QB number 3.
Please
You remember when you played Madden back in the day,
Please tell me it's Ryan
some
Howard.
guys who weren't a part of the Player Association
QB3.
didn't have names, and so it was like Philly QB number 3.
Yeah, I remember seeing a recognizable face in the sideline in the game.
It used to be Mark
game.
Sanchez a long time ago.
But yeah,
Is it Matt Barkley still?
Is it Michael Vick?
Is it Ron Jaworski? We could do this all day.
This could go on for a while. Randall Cunningham was my next one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not actually sure who it is, but I agree. I think, as Anthony said, the injury factor to me weighs more important for this bet going
Than trick plays.
than a trick play.
Interesting. See, that's the thing.
About injuries.
Yeah.
With the four of us sitting here, you have different angles to think about
Right.
it. Our thoughts were Edelman and Gronkowski throwing 40-yard bombs,
Yeah.
and then you have Mr. Could Go Either Way coming up with the actual inside information. So.
Yeah, no, and that's where my mind went too. I mean, yes, of course, there's always trick plays and things happen, but to me, yes, it's more of an injury thought as well.
Nate Sudfeld.
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
totally knew that one.
Wow.
It's right on the top of my head.
If Sudfeld has to come into this game, good luck, Philly.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get that over 14.5.
Yeah, probably. Here's a prop that confuses people. It doesn't have any disclaimers on it. It says specifically. Let me give you the lines. Actually, the yes is plus 800. The no is minus 1400. It says, will Nick Foles score a touchdown? I've got to imagine that's a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, that has to, or
Or it could be a pass to himself.
yeah.
Could be the Mariota pass.
Yeah.
Or a flea flicker if he decides to somehow go out into the. I know Nick Foles is not going anywhere, but I'm just saying that it is
Or a
theoretically
receiving
possible.
touchdown, yes.
Right,
but
that's what I'm saying.
I'm just saying.
Faster 40, Foles or Brady?
Oh, God, I think Brady runs a forever. So, I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, no idea. Foles is a virtual statue, though, so I'm probably just going to go with Brady because of that.
Wow, all right.
Serious. Foles is unbelievably slow.
The reason I bring up this prop bet is because I can see a lot of people, and I wonder if a lot of books will give you, kind of a disclaimer ahead of time, because I can see a lot of people, if he throws a touchdown, I'm getting plus 800. That's crazy. What the hell? But I think a lot of people who don't understand that prop bet may make an ill-advised bet. and lose based on the fact, Foles had 3 passing touchdowns. Well, that's not what this bet was all about. So
Right.
I feel here on the Vegas Squares podcast, we owe it to educate some people and tell you that that's not a passing touchdown. You're not getting 800 for a 1-yard dump off or a shovel pass.
It would be nice, though.
It would be, yeah. But like you said, we're chasing their money. The Westgate's not a bunch of idiots. So.
Sure.
Anthony, what will Nick Foles throw first? Touchdown or interception?
What's the line? Minus 110 both?
No, it's TD pass 240 negative and interception 190.
If neither, then it's a refund?
That doesn't say.
Ah, interesting.
I would assume if it's neither, it's a refund. Though.
Yeah, I would lean towards the touchdown, but that's a lot of juice to put up. I would stick away from this, but if I had gun to my head to bet it, I would probably say touchdown.
I'm going with pick, staying with my tried and true thought of how the game will go on, with not a lot of touchdown passes combined. I'm going to go ahead and especially if we have no idea what we're going to get from Foles. And again, we could get a great second half of the game like against Minnesota. But I think to me, it's more likely that it's not that. It's a deer in headlights for a little while until he gathers himself. And I'll take the plus 190 in the pick.
Interesting one here. It's we'll go into specific player props a little later, but I want to look at this one with Jake Elliott, the Philadelphia kicker, and these two kind of correlate potentially. Spike, Jake Elliott's total points are over under 7.5 as a specific prop bet, 110 either way, but also his total field goals made are over under 1.5. So what are your thoughts on those two prop bets and potentially them being, correlated?
Right. So, I mean, that's the Westgate saying that they think that Philadelphia will score so many touchdowns that he'll be out there kicking just extra points all day, which is a little
misleading.
Me. Yeah, I'm not crazy about that. I think, I like over the field goals because, again, Patriots bend, don't break, that they're going to stuff Philadelphia from being able to get in the end zone. So I think there will be more field goal attempts than maybe people realize, and that should mean that he gets over 7.5 points. Now, the question is, will he choke under pressure for rookie kicker in the Super Bowl? That does make me hesitate a little bit because that's a recipe for disaster. We've seen experienced kickers fall apart in the Super Bowl before.
Sure.
So I hesitate on that. I hate both of these. I'm not touching these.
Well, if you were a guy who liked the under and said Jake Elliott's, or if you liked the over, the third prop bet kind of correlates with this one is will Jake Elliott miss a field goal? The yes is plus 300. So if you'd like him to be under the 1.5 field goals or the 7.5 points, a strong bet may be that he attempts a field goal and bricks it, and you're getting plus 300 odds at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that would...
It's kind of an interesting, the three bets I see right back to back, it's like, if you're talking about the fact that Philadelphia may never score, may not get over 14 to 17 points, then you're talking about, 5 points at the most for Elliott at that point. And then if he actually attempts a field goal, you're getting plus money on, like you're talking about the bend to don't break, and we're talking about the over 33-yard field goals. A lot of these props, obviously, they tend to intertwine. Jake Elliott missing a 50-yard field goal or a 45-yard field goal in the Super Bowl doesn't sound so far-fetched, and if you're giving me plus 300, but what does that say about Vegas is basically saying the no is minus 400 at that point. I mean, he's an accurate kicker, but like you said, the Super Bowl does crazy things to kickers.
Right. Now, the question is how much...
Just ask Scott Norwood.
Yeah, exactly. How much? But how much does playing in a dome affect this? And, he doesn't have to deal with the weather. He can, kind of hopefully maybe tune the crowd out and just, kind of go out there and do his thing. Doesn't have to deal with wind, doesn't have to deal with anything too crazy except for his own head and his own physical ability.
Well, and not only that, if the Eagles are so terrible in this game, he may not even attempt a field goal, and then the no would hit.
Oh boy.
Well, do we think they're going to be that bad? Really?
I'm not saying they are, but
Okay.
I mean, teams can get blown out in this, or teams can have no attempts at a field goal.
And we have seen Nick Foles play terrible games this year.
Good point.
So I'm saying if it's 31-7 in the game,
Yeah.
and we're already in the second or third quarter, they may be going for touchdowns at that point and not attempting field goals, because the always out adage is get the points when you can get them, but if you're down 24-7 to the New England Patriots, field goals aren't going to help you.
Right. That's true too.
So it's just an interesting correlation between those three bets, I thought.
But if you're up 14-10 at the end of the first half, with
Oh my God.
55 seconds left and 3 timeouts, and you don't go for the field goal,
There we go.
you're an idiot.
Wow. A little shout out to Doug Marone.
Yes, it was. Now we start getting into some very ticky-tack ones.
Yeah.
Ooh, will the Eagles score in all 4 quarters? Overtime excluded. Yes, plus 350. No, minus 450.
Based on that value, I like the yes.
Well, of course, the value, but I mean, you're talking all 4 quarters, they got to get a point?
Against
That's a tough one.
Patriots defense.
You're talking about, traditionally first and third being, your more non-scoring quarters.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a kind of an interesting bet as far as, Patriots haven't scored in the first ever.
Yep.
And you take out half the game as far as non-traditional scoring quarters, but yes, you're getting 350 odds at that point. It's an interesting bet.
It is. Yeah. It's an intriguing one, and it's tough. It's tough laying something like minus 450 in a bet where you really don't feel comfortable at all in what's going on. A minus 450 type of wager to me is something where you feel pretty strong about. You have a pretty good idea. You got a foundation of what's going on.
Right.
Here, it's just there's a lot of getting the ball right away has a big effect on this. Right away in the first quarter, whether there's a deferral or not, or however the coin flip goes, they may or may not get the ball, and it's that could have a strong influence as well. So I'm with Anthony here. I would, again, just because I do not want to be laying minus 450 with these types of bets, I would take the yes at plus 350, but not betting it, and I understand why this is probably a relatively easy avoid.
Now, Spike, I mean, if you bet Atlanta with this same bet last year after 3 quarters, you felt pretty freaking good.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, 28-3. I mean, they scored in every quarter at this point. They've been dominating, and all they needed was a field goal to win that game.
Right, but as you said, that was the Shanahan effect, where he made the backroom deal with Belichick to get Garoppolo for cheap.
Are you starting to believe that?
Yes.
Are you?
Yeah, no, I'm all in on that one. So,
What about the other theory? We had another one that you were talking about. I forget. It wasn't specifically related to that. I have to go back and look at all the other podcasts. I know that was, now our listener is on bended knee waiting for that one.
Yeah, well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. It could go either way.
Now, if you believe that the Eagles will be behind in this game, which it sounds like we all kind of feel the same way, will they convert a 4th down attempt? And you cannot convert by penalty, so they would have to convert it by an actual play. The no is even money, but the yes is slightly juiced at 120. Does this 120 juice play to the fact that we all believe that they'll be down and be making moves on 4th down and have to convert against this New England defense?
Right. So I think we first look at is how many attempts are they going to have. It's I think relatively easy to figure out how often you may convert. I mean, there's quite a bit of data there, and that doesn't change drastically from, especially with good teams, from one team to the next. So it's how many attempts, and it's. I don't. There's a lot of early part of the game, how it starts, where I think that answer will probably be known as we go on. If we start, like I think a lot of us kind of are, that it might be more of a closer game, kind of grind it out early on, not really sure where we go. That there'll probably be some conservative play calling, but the moment in the second half, or really any time, third, fourth quarter, where Philly might see themselves in trouble. You could see, to me, maybe multiple attempts on even a drive. because they know that getting down 2 scores to New England late in the game is pretty much going to be lights out. So I would bet the yes here just based on how I feel there might be more than one attempt, probably multiple attempts. 2 to 3 would be my guess, and if you get 2 to 3 attempts, you are very likely to convert at least one.
So let's look at it from the flip side. And you talked about conservative nature, conservative play calling. Well,
early on, yes.
Right. Bill Belichick has not always subscribed to that theory.
No.
So I look at the opposite side, Spike, and say the Patriots converting a 4th down attempt. The yes is plus 115. The no is actually minus 135. Is that a play on the yes? Because, if we're talking, we've seen Bill Belichick make some 4th down attempts from anywhere on the field. But is this more of a testament to that we think they'll be ahead and never really have to attempt one? Or do you like the yes and say, anything, all bets are off, no pun intended, with Bill Belichick?
Yeah, and I think that's what it is I'm not even sure that if they were ahead, they wouldn't go for it on a 4th down. Just because Belichick is absolutely the type that will put the dagger in the throat of another team. He's not going to want to give the ball back. Even in a game that seems like it's already out of reach, he wants to make goddamn well sure that game is out of reach. So I certainly like New England hitting a 4th down conversion rather than a Philadelphia. Although you did... I'm wavering more on the Philadelphia side now because I was pretty adamant that it wouldn't happen, but I think you've...
I like the New England yes, too. Yeah, I'm on the yes for both. I agree completely with the New England yes as well. Definitely.
And that's the wrinkle with New England is because, like you say, it could be 4th and 4 from, Philadelphia's 48, and, Belichick would have no issue going for that.
Oh, absolutely. Especially
and should go for it.
And no matter where he is in the game, down, up. This whole notion, and we've seen it, with, the respect of the game, don't run up the score. How many teams have we seen get back into games because the other team takes their foot off the proverbial gas pedal at that point? And I'm over this whole, respect for the game. You score as many points as you need to score because you never know what could happen.
Right.
Sure.
The other team is a professional football team. They are capable of scoring points, and
they're
capable
tasked to stop you.
Right, and it's their job to make sure that you stay out of the end zone. If they can't do it, tough noogies.
Yep, they get the L.
All right, now let's kind of take a look before we jump into the crazy prop bets. Let's take a look at some player-specific props. And, Tony, I know you saw a couple in the Bible there that you like and are leaning towards one way or the other.
Yes. The first one is James White receiving yards. I'm going to probably feel this feels very public-esque. I'm not a huge fan of kind of being alongside, but this does feel like a relatively easy over. This is one of the first ones I saw cruising through. One of the first guys I wanted to see what his numbers were. And in my own thought, somewhere in the 30s made a lot of sense to me, just based on the amount of receptions that I think are likely. And then if we scroll down a little bit, we see the total receptions at 3.5 with the under a fave at minus 130. But still, if you consider that he gets roughly around 3 receptions, I think James White is absolutely okay. This is really, to me, how Philly can not. I don't want to say the word beaten, but I think that you can get some chunks of yards from Philly in the best way of getting behind their defensive line by not running right at them and being able to get a really elusive player who's got actually well above average hands, I think, compared to a lot of other running backs. And he can scamper for a significant chunk on even just one reception. Like this, to me, gets there sometimes with just one reception. And that's no matter how the game goes, whether New England is up or down, it's not one of those player props to me that's really game dependent per se. Clearly, if they're up, a ton of points, there may not be as much down the field throwing the ball, and I realize they're going to run the football more, but I'm a huge fan of this one. If there's ever if they get 2 2-minute drills as well, if there's one maybe towards the end of the first half, and then they have to somehow score in the second half to win the game. I mean, you could have receptions go up into the 6, 7, 8 number for James White because he just makes the most sense on this team to me.
Yeah, and that number is 27.5. The question I have is that, with Dion, with Burkhead, last year they didn't have Gillislee and they didn't have Burkhead. Gillislee may or may not play. He's questionable at this point. Is there just too many horses in the stable at this point that, James White, to me, it almost seems he kind of got forgotten a lot this year, and that may be what the Westgate is planning in this point to say, hey, look, he did get forgotten a lot. There's a lot of people that may or may not. There are a lot of people that may decide that the under's in play right there. So telling me it's public-esque, I don't know if I necessarily see it that way. I could see it being a situation where a lot of games, James White didn't touch the ball.
Right, and I think that's part of the New England offensive philosophy is that they find somebody new every week that they're going to feature as their guy. Now, the X factor here is James White. How often is he going to be the check down guy? How often is he going to be the safety valve on a play where, maybe the first read is to Gronk, second read to Amendola, and then he gets to the end, he has to dump it off to White for even a couple of yards. The question is, how many times is Brady going to have to rely on White as that,
sure,
third, fourth, fifth option down the line? And I think that could be that could definitely lead the receptions going up, up, up.
I just don't like. Burkhead hasn't played a lot recently. He's been off and on injured for a while, and while we've said that Belichick and company are known for kind of bringing a guy in right after they're back healthy again and featuring them. The Super Bowl is a little bit different than that. Yeah, if this is week 13 or 14 and he's back healthy and fresh because obviously he hasn't been playing a lot, that's one thing. But Rex Burkhead is in a similar, and he's a bigger guy than James White. Granted, I'll grant you that, but he just doesn't do what James White does at anything close
Agreed.
To that. And to me, I just don't see Burkhead seeing a lot of snaps. Dion Lewis is, a fine, more feature-esque back, and will get the majority of the rushes. Grant you that. But to me, I don't, and I know that people disagree with this, but I don't see Dion Lewis as a better back than James White. Even in a featured role, running the ball off tackle. To me, I don't see it. But that's my own opinion.
I can see where you see that too, because I don't think Dion Lewis is necessarily any better than James White. I just think he's a little bit
used more.
Yeah, he gets used more in that spot as a guy, because you got to use somebody, and I think the change of pace guy is James White, like you said. He's a tough guy to cover. So
very hard. He really is. I think he's one of the more underrated players on the entire team.
Another prop bet you see, player specific.
Yeah, I was looking before. I know we had talked about some of the weirdo ones early, but this one was a first rush. And the Jay Ajayi first rush, 3.5 yards. And I liked the over, and it was also, let me find it here to get the exact money line, because it was a plus money line, if I remember correctly. And yes, there it is. There somewhere. Okay, yes. Ajayi over 3.5 first rush plus 115.
Interesting.
Yeah. He is a back. He's had some really, really high quality games throughout this year and his career where he wears on people and he breaks some big rushes later in games. And I understand that and I respect that. But to me, this is just a standard take a shot. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I know we're not. There's no deep research to be done here.
No, I mean I can see what you're saying, and based on that, you're talking about 3.5 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, Spike, New England's rush defense hasn't been that great.
No, absolutely not. That certainly seems like a reasonable number to me. 3.5. I think he can make that. Now the question is, obviously, does some kind of weird fluky thing where he gets tripped by an offensive lineman happen where he could fall forward?
That's possible.
Yeah. No, I mean it's like, but. If you do the research, if you look at New England's rush defense, if you look at how powerful Ajayi is, especially because since playing for the Dolphins, he knows the New England rush defense, or at least he should. You should be able to find a hole and get there for the 3.5.
And I think there's also something to be said for just the random degenerateness of a bet like this, because you're going to get action.
Could go either way.
Yeah, and well, it could definitely go either way, but you're going to get it graded immediately, and I hate to be that guy of what have you done for me immediately and lately, but I like the bets that are there in and out, and we know, and you just get that high like feeling of just seeing him in the backfield on the first play of the game, and you know good things are going to happen.
Now, the question I have is, you've sat in a sports book for the Super Bowl, and you're talking about these immediate actions, the immediate dividends. Can you cash these out?
I've only done it once in my life, and it was at, weirdly enough, South Point.
Okay.
Yeah, not a recommendation on Super Bowl Sunday. It was years ago,
It's
and
a
it was
tight
just a bad
book,
decision.
too. It's a very small book.
And if you have a lot of heavy smokers around you too, it's really pretty brutal. But that's another topic. Yes, they were very adamant and very big on grading those types of bets immediately, and in fact they
Get
announced
that money back in, right?
Yeah, exactly, and they announced it too. That was the great thing about it. They were very smart. They announced it. I think it was Jimmy Vaccaro or whoever runs the book would actually get on the mic and be like, "Okay, so the first rushing attempt," and he would do it in between plays,
Sure.
not try to disrupt it. But yes, absolutely. He's like, tickets can be taken now, or whatever he would say. And you had a bunch of degenerates like me just kind of rolling up there with our tickets, and then you have bets, you have in-game betting, and all kinds of other things going on, and that money is getting right back out there.
Yeah, because if you're a sports book, why hold on to winning money? You're not escrowing it. The only way you can get that money is to continue to have these people degenerate right back into your book.
Totally, and I'm not sure how the Superbook does it. I don't know with Westgate, but I can just speak on my South Point experience. Is that if they could pay it out, they were doing so.
Yeah, I mean that's a smart move by the books. Like I said, the only way to get that money back in is to keep it going out when it wins, and hopefully the people that you've paid it out to will continue to try to
give it right back to you.
Press it and hedge.
Absolutely.
So, have you guys ever been to a sports book during Super Bowl?
Oh God, no.
I have not either.
No, the only thing that I did once was for, what year was it? Packers Steelers. Is that 2009?
10, I believe.
2010, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that one I was at the Cosmopolitan, but I wasn't in the sports book. It was in one of the fancy rooms where they did one of the parties. But they had the sports book kiosks set up.
Oh, nice!
But manned kiosks essentially.
The ticket window.
Yeah, so you could theoretically cash some of these props during the game. The problem was there were so few of them, so many people up there that trying to get
an in-game bet was probably impossible.
It was ridiculous. I couldn't even get a halftime bet in. That's how long the line was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Halftime's long, too.
And
every window's open usually during those days. So.
But I mean, this wasn't the full.
It was like two windows, maybe?
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's what I'm saying. Sitting in a book, I've done it twice now, and I think I've made the decision after the second one. The first one was. Who was before Pat Seahawks?
That was Seahawks Broncos.
Seahawks Broncos, thank you, yes. The first one was Seahawks Broncos. I enjoyed my experience there. It was my first, Vegas experience. And then Broncos Panthers, I did at Red Rock. And it was probably one of the worst experiences as far as being in a room with smoking. They allowed the smoking.
That's a big one for me,
The lines were long. Station casinos in-game options were slim and none. Pretty much, and I thought that they really dropped the ball on that because I took $2,000 to the action.
Holy
wow, that's
probably only put about a fourth of it in play because the options just weren't there in my opinion, and I didn't. Once the game started, they obviously had all their props and everything, but once the game started, I'm an in-play guy, so I like the in-play options, and they just really didn't have it at that point. They may be different. I'm not trying to shy anyone away from coming to Vegas and going to a sports book because it's a pretty awesome experience if you can get the right spot or if you and your buddies, roll high and you can get yourself a nice little private table. By all means, don't let me stop you from being there. But, yeah, I think, being at home, having the William Hill app and having all of their degenerate prop bets right at my fingertips, to me.
Yeah, the app's a game changer. It really is. All of these apps are just total. I mean, you can have 5 of them open, just ready to go, and just.
As long as you got money in each of the books,
Hammer away, yeah.
So, were there any other specific player props that you saw that jumped out at you that you would be leaning or?
Those were actually the 2 that I'm for sure betting. There were some others that I grazed and saw. I liked. There was an over on. LeGarrette Blount rushing yards, and it's low. It's like 20. I think it was like 27.
You talked about LeGarrette Blount when you talked about Jay Ajayi with that 3.5-yard rush.
Right.
How bad would you feel if Jay Ajayi got a 2-yard rush and Blount breaks a 50-yarder in that bet?
Well, I won't feel as bad if I have the Blount over, though.
Sure.
So,
yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
So as long as we're getting some bets, coming home, we just don't want to go over. That's never fun. But this is just again more along the lines of where I see the game going, and I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but in order to make prop bets, the only way I can sort of do it
you
around my hand around
it. You have to theoretically play a game out.
Exactly. And if Philly is going to make any hay in this game, which they may or may not, I'm not sure. I think they will. I think it'll be relatively close, as we said, but I think they're going to do it on the ground more than anything else, especially when we have a wild card with Nick Foles. We don't know what we're going to get, and these guys can run the ball. There's no question there's some skill here. I'm not sold on Clement or even Smallwood, the other back. They're not going to play much anyway, but
right.
I think these first two guys can really play, and to me that's why I'm just on the overtrain in general with these guys. And Blount at only 20, I believe it was 27.5, is just. That's just not enough yard. He'll have enough attempts where he needs 3.5 per attempt, and he's good to go.
Spike, this one you texted me when we picked up the Bible the other day, and I wanted to bring it up on the podcast because you didn't tell me how you were feeling about it, so I was curious. The over is plus 170, the under is minus 200. The total is 6.5, and that's receiving yards by Phillip Dorsett. That's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean,
it really is. And again, New England's offensive philosophy is that they like to kind of break out one feature guy every game, and God forbid in the Super Bowl it ends up being Phillip friggin' Dorsett. But it's a distinct possibility.
And at plus 170, I mean,
yeah. No, and that's the thing. He strikes me as the type of guy that
1 catch, 7 yards.
He's going to catch 1 catch this game. He's
Yeah.
going to make 1 catch this game. He might only have 1 target this game. So the question is he able to get above the what was the line? 6.5?
6.5.
Yeah.
That's
so
the threshold.
can he get the 7 yards in that one play? Theoretically, I think it's a yes because he strikes me as the type of guy that is only going to be on there on like a 3rd and 8 type situation. They're going to say go 12 yards down the field.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's one that somebody is looking to hit, then yeah, but the problem is again if he only gets the 1 target and he muffs it, then that might be a ticket that you light on fire by about the second quarter.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think he gets maybe 1 or 2 targets and definitely goes over 6.5. Especially for that value, I definitely like that and definitely consider betting that one. So,
how many plays is he roughly getting these last few games? Do we know that? If I know you guys are
a handful, maybe.
Yeah, at most.
I'm just curious.
3 to 5, probably. Yeah.
Okay, so he's got to really, when he's in there, he really needs to make do. Okay.
He's probably getting 1, maybe 2 targets a game. That's why this prop bet is so interesting because you're right. His best games are probably 2, 3 catches a game, if that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you got to wonder why is that? It's not like
it's not like he's a bad receiver.
No. I mean, is it that he's just dumb and he hasn't figured out the New England offense yet? Like,
that's a possibility.
I don't know
how good of a slot receiver would he be this year? You know? I mean, as far as Edelman being out, I mean, you're talking about a slot receiver. Phillip Dorsett would have fit in perfectly in that role.
Especially with Hogan going down for so long. They needed another receiver. Where was Dorsett during that time?
I mean, God forbid something bad happens to one of the receivers. He might have a breakout game. And like you were saying, what was the odds on him getting the MVP? 120 to 1 or something?
Interesting.
Oh, I think like $1.25 or something like that.
Wow.
Phillip Dorsett's best game this year by receptions is 3.
Oof.
By yards is 68 against New Orleans in week 2. But, I mean, you're talking about...
Yeah.
Or is it week 2? Yeah, and that's... I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are 10 games with statistics. So we're talking about 8 games where he didn't even either suit up or didn't even get in the action.
Right. And that's the question is... For those games that he didn't make a catch, was he targeted at all? Do you have that?
The games that he didn't make a catch, he had 3 targets against the Jets, 1 target against Kansas City in the first game. But every game that he's in, he's had at least 1 target other than those 2 games.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, you're talking about against Jacksonville, 1 catch, 31 yards on 1 target. You know, you're talking about Buffalo, 1 catch, 1 target, 24 yards.
Yep.
You know, Miami, 1 catch, 1 target, 39 yards. So when you're saying when he gets targeted and he completes a pass, he only has one game where he was targeted, caught a ball for less than the number that we have here on the prop bet, and that was against Pittsburgh. 1 catch, 1 target, 4 yards. Everything else has been no less than 11 yards. So it's an interesting bet. I mean, 6.5 yards. If Dorsett's going to get 2 or 3 targets in this game, odds are you feel pretty good about 6.5.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you like, Tony, with the specific player props? Anything jump out and catch your eye?
I'm leaning towards some special teams ones. I like the Donnie Jones longest gross punt. 55.5.
We knew he'd make his way in at some point.
All right, we got
There
punters.
Yep. You got me ruled. And
Ayo, punter.
I like the under in this one because the philosophy of New England's defense bend not break.
The philosophy of under in which one?
The under of the Donnie Jones 55.5 gross punt.
Okay, so you're stating that his punts will more be pooches or shorter punts.
I would say probably about 45, like average gross punt, kind of.
That is a gross punt.
Yeah.
This entire conversation is a gross punt.
You know what? After the Super Bowl, I want to look at my wallet and realize that was a gross punt too of all the bets I've made. But it could go either way.
No. No, based on New England's philosophy of giving up some yards but not giving up the house, either you'll have longer field goals or all that, or, punts around midfield where he's trying to pin them deep but maybe gets it inside the 20 but not trying to risk a touchback in that situation.
It's fair enough.
And then also another one I like with Donnie Jones is punting a touchback.
You're saying there will be one?
I'm saying there will be one.
It's fair enough. I could see that.
Because Eagles...
As you speak more and more about Donnie Jones, Spike's face gets redder and redder.
Say you get them around midfield and it's borderline field goal situation. Would you rather try and pin New England deep?
Yeah.
And New England, say it's a drop ball inside the 10-yard line, they'll probably take a chance on a bounce than a fair catch in that situation against Philly's special teams.
This is riveting.
Skype's over there.
Skype.
Sweating balls.
Any other specific player props that you see that will, kind of jump out on you that you'd probably be take to the window and unstrap the rubber band?
I'm up. All right. The only one that really stood out.
It was Anthony, but he's
buried.
I gave him a planning period, and
I punted it away.
A gross punt. They wasted it on Donnie Jones.
The one that stood out to me is, will Zach Ertz score a touchdown? Yes is plus 170. And that, again, goes back to what kind of a game do we think Nick Foles will have. But this seems like the type of target where if they are close enough for the touchdown pass, he seems like the obvious choice. Yeah. So I like this one at the plus 170. And that I usually don't like these player prop type things, but this one really stands out to me as a nice one to lay some money on.
And they spread it around pretty well, Philly, when they're, I think, between the 20s, if you will. Especially they use Trey Burton, the other tight end. But in the red zone and when it counts, to me, I totally agree. He seems to be definitely the best. Well, Alshon's certainly a good target too, but he would be a main guy.
Right. And with the receivers, New England can cover them with Gilmore and Butler, but when Zach Ertz
is tough to cover.
Yeah, when he's in the back of the end zone there, that's going to be a real big mismatch for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's look at the elephant in the room, and a lot of these props may or may not be bet depending on the media updates from the next week, and that is the Rob Gronkowski props. He's currently in concussion protocol. All signs point to him being able to play Sunday, and I'm sure he wants to play too. He's missed, 2 of the previous 3 Super Bowls in his career. Now, Tony, if he does not play and you make these bets, are you SOL?
No, you're good to go. So they have on the bottom of each page of the Bible here, and I don't know, I'm not sure if it's online or not, but there's an asterisk by each player. And it just states that the player must play for action unless otherwise indicated, in case there isn't an asterisk. But I've looked through the sheets, and it's pretty much all players have this asterisk.
Now, as far as you say play, I mean, if Gronk's listed as good to go, and by for some weird reason he pisses off Belichick Saturday night and goes out clubbing, and he's listed as active but doesn't actually step on the field for a play.
Has to be on the field for play. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why they take sometimes quite a bit of time to whether they pay
specific props,
player props, right? Because there's going to be a guy that's going to have no catches or no rushes or whatever, and they need to make sure that he was
on the field.
Actually on the field, just have to be on the field. It can be a special teams play. It doesn't have to be on offense or on defense if it's a defensive player. Just on the field at any given time. So I guess we could certainly say, and this has happened before, if you're injured on the first play of the game, but you're out there.
That's unfortunate,
then you're definitely SOL.
But if he's ruled out for the game, you can receive a refund on your
correct. If it's before the game starts or whatever, yes.
See, that's a good one, because I was curious, there's a lot of Gronk props.
As there should be.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But I'm saying, I mean, he creates such an enigma and a stigma on his bets because, well, let's face it, he may not play. We don't know. The question I have is now, do you take a flyer, Spike, on the total receiving yards by Dwayne Allen at half a yard? Because if Gronk doesn't play, he's their next tight end.
Right, but if Gronk doesn't play, there's no guarantee that the tight end becomes part of the passing game.
Right, I understand that. But plus 120 at a half of a yard.
That is a tough one to pass up, I admit, but... And the other side of that, too, is that Dwayne Allen is not the receiving tight end. I mean, not that anybody is the receiving tight end that Gronkowski is, but that's not his game. He's a blocking tight end. He's out there to help the offensive line and to keep Brady upright. He's not necessarily the safety valve situation. I think if that were to happen, you would see a lot more of James White out of the backfield than you would Dwayne Allen going out for a... 3/4 of a yard catch to really secure that over for you.
That'd be great if he knew what his prop was and he caught the ball behind the line of scrimmage and was like, just over. Yep. He does have 10 catches on the year, sir.
Yes, I understand that. 10 catches in however many games.
Over 18 games.
And how many total yards does he have in those 10 catches?
How many do you think he has?
Did he play in every single one of those games, though?
That's a good question.
I would say if he has 10 catches, he probably has about 105 yards.
Not even close. He has 84.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so you're not wrong. I just feel like as the week goes on, if the prognosis on Gronk doesn't get any better, I think plus 120, that's kind of worth a flyer,
Oh, yeah,
in my opinion.
I'm not saying it's a terrible bet. It's certainly not the worst thing that I've seen or worst thing that I've heard today. But it's certainly...
Last 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's worth taking a stab at. This is not one where I'm going to put the money down and feel super confident that it's coming in.
Well, that's the beauty of some of these prop bets is, some of these more or lesser known bets are where less money is going to come in and less attention is paid by the books. That's why a lot of people do really well at hockey and baseball because the percentage of the take is so much lower than basketball and football. So a lot of people tell you, people who bet, not mostly degenerately, but more hardcore will tell you, you bet golf, you bet, tennis, you bet hockey, you bet baseball, whereas, the general public or the squares will bet the football stuff. So the lesser known bets can make for some intriguing situations. So that's just my initial thought on that. Any more player props that anybody saw specifically that they like and they'll be taking the rubber band off when they get to the window? My favorite one specifically, and I do this all the time with whoever I go to the hockey game with, and Anthony knows this, when we do the hockey game, we do a prop bet of the person to score the first goal, will their jersey number be higher or lower than 50? 50 is a push, because usually nobody's number 50. So
plus there's no zeros or 100 or... That would be the exact mean.
Or you want like 50.5 is what you're saying?
Yeah, there's no half because, if there's a 50, we discuss that. I've never come across that. But what I usually do with Des or with Anthony when we go to the games is we usually have a $5 bet on player who scores their jersey number over under 50. Well, the jersey number of the player to score the first touchdown in the Super Bowl is over under 32.5. So my thoughts are in that spot, if you like the running backs, you got Dion Lewis, who's a factor in the over. And you got Jay Ajayi, I believe he's number 36, if I'm not mistaken. So the over looks good to me, unless you get like Blunt or James White. But what are your thoughts on 32.5 kind of as a weird number? I think that number centers right around Dion Lewis.
I absolutely agree with that. I also like the over to that bet as well. What's the current line on that? Is it
110 either way?
I definitely like the over in that situation.
So you got to account for a factor such as Chris Hogan or Alshon Jeffrey or guys like that. Brandon Cooks wears 14. So
Phillip Dorsett,
James White.
Well, James White. But on the flip side, you have Alshon Jeffrey who wears 17. Torrey Smith though is over. He wears, I believe, 81, 82.
That sounds right. Yeah. I think 81.
It's kind of an interesting thing. You think about it, like receivers back in the day always used to be in the 80s.
80s, yeah.
And running backs were always in the 20s or low 30s. Yeah. So now with today's new, wear whatever the fuck you want jersey, 32 is an interesting number.
It is. There's a lot of wide receivers going into the low double digits, like the 10s to 17s, right around that wheelhouse. And also a lot of running backs still in the mid-20 kind of area.
And I think we have the majority of defensive backs, too. Pretty much everybody in the 20s. It's worth mentioning and thinking about. I know it's probably unlikely, but
it's all a part of it.
Sure.
Guys who return punts and kicks, right. if we happen to have a special teams touchdown,
sure.
Where do they fall? So 32 is an interesting thing. Like your immediate thought process was the over, but I don't know if it's necessarily as clear cut and dry as you think about that.
Seems like a good line, yeah. I agree.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's centered around Dion Lewis because a lot of people. I'll have to look at the props, but the player to score the first touchdown is. I wonder what Dion Lewis's number is to score the first touchdown in that point.
I think it's him and Ajayi. I think are the faves. The player to score the first. Actually, there's 4 people at 8-1. It's not. Oh yeah, there's or is that just Philly?
Where's that?
Yeah, player to score. Oh, yeah, here we go. So 7-1. Oh, Gronk is 7-1.
Oh, wow.
And then Dion Lewis is 12-1. Interesting. We got Cooks at 8. And then on the flip side, Philly has 4 guys at 8. Ajayi, Jeffrey, Ertz, and Aguilar.
And what does Aguilar wear? Do we know?
No idea.
I want to say
it's low.
I want to say he's in the teens.
I think it's low.
So really setting that line at 32.5 centers around Dion Lewis, but if you're the 8 players you mentioned, I think it's 4 on each side at that point. So of the players who are most likely to score the first touchdown. So
interesting how James White is 10-1, but Dion Lewis is 12.
First, that is intriguing.
Interesting.
It's something to think about.
I'm liking my James White side more and more as we think about this.
In that case, you might want to look at whoever scores the last touchdown of the game. White's going at 12-1 there.
Interesting.
Wow.
Aguilar wears 13, so yeah.
That is weird.
It is.
And then Dion drops to 7-1 for the last touchdown.
Well, he's usually not in there a lot at the end.
Well, and that's I was looking at the same thing, but I was looking at it for LeGarrette Blount. First touchdown of the game, he's at 10-1. Last touchdown of the game, he's 12-1. And he gets better as the game goes on. He is more effective as the game goes on.
Well, the more he smokes, the better he gets, right?
Yeah.
That's what we need from him.
The better you get, the better you feel. So smoke those blunts with every meal. What about anybody have any thoughts on the NBA basketball cross props with Philadelphia? I don't follow a lick of basketball.
Look, if I wanted to watch a pseudo sport that was scripted and completely just hackney, I'd watch the WWE. Like, fuck the NBA.
I'm just saying, I don't watch the NBA, so to me, the only way I would is to force myself with cross props. And so I'm going to skip those. Did you see any cross-sport props that you liked?
Yeah, there's a few, but without getting into a discussion of whether the NBA is good or not, because it is arguably one of the great things on TV. But that's fine. But we'll deal with that at a later time.
Could go either way.
Yeah.
I think there's a GIF out there for that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, and I've probably seen worse than what is shown in that regard. But the one I actually do like, and it's based on matchup more than anything else, because I looked at this one earlier, is the Paul George rebounds versus the Eagles and Patriots combined touchdowns. If we have a game like last Super Bowl, clearly this is not a good spot to be in. I don't know how many touchdowns there were, but there were a lot last year.
Which game is it?
I'm just talking about the last Super Bowl.
Oh, okay,
It would be too many touchdowns. But here, I don't think there's going to be a ton of touchdowns combined. So we're already working well there. And knowing what we know about the Lakers so far, and they've had a couple of injuries recently, but that's not even really my point, is that they are a terrible defensive rebounding team. They're really bad. OKC is especially on this 8-game winning streak, has been getting out and running quite a bit. They're not always the most efficient at scoring around the basket, and I think Paul George, just on an offensive side, on an offensive rebounding side, he's playing a lot less on the perimeter recently. I know this is not an NBA show, so I'm just probably saying weird things, but this I like a lot. Big fan of the Paul George side versus the combined touchdowns.
So you kind of think Paul George could be in the 5 rebound range in that point?
I think 5 can win, and
Sure.
I think very likely he'll be probably 6 to 8 would be my guess.
Interesting.
That's where he'll be, and I think that 5 will win.
Over Eagles and Patriots total touchdowns.
Total touchdowns. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that, Spike?
Why the fuck would I?
That's about the thought I thought you'd have. So, what other NBA props jump out to anybody as far as cross sport? Anybody got anything?
That was the one I liked the best by far. Now there's a couple of. I guess I might as well get this over with too, being the weirdo golf guy here. But
The weirdo golf guy.
the tournament at least that they're playing. So we have. How many are there? I think there's 6 or 7. So there's 7 props that deal with specific players and either their fourth round score or the amount of birdies or fairways or something that they hit, and something that happens in the game. So the key here, obviously, because it's fourth round score, is does it matter if they make the cut or not? It's just something. If you had to make the cut and that wasn't something that was written, that would be a thing. But they do say the Westgate does come through again and talk about that the player has to tee off in the fourth round and complete the fourth round. So that's another thing too, is that there's sometimes things happen, weather, what have you, and
Excludes playoff holes as well.
exactly. So excludes. Okay. So there's that too, but. We're in. It's going to be a tournament that is likely to be a relative shootout. The weather is projected to be pretty good without a lot of wind, and it's a course that you can really get at. It's like 15 to 20 under is likely to win, if not maybe even more. So I not saying that there's specifically anything here or there, but I would be erring on the side of the golfer side of, like, especially if we're talking about amount of birdies, you're going to want to be on the birdie side more often than the football side. Again, if the football side, if you're on let's give an example. So the Jordan Spieth birdies versus Zach Ertz receptions.
That's the one I'm looking at right now. Yeah.
Okay, so and that's an easy one because everyone knows who Jordan Spieth is. So. If we're in the camp that Zach Ertz is usable but nothing spectacular or specific, and I think we're all kind of in that camp that we don't see Philly being able to go up and down the field in this game.
So you think 3 to 4 in that window for Zach Ertz?
Right. So 3 to 4, and in a now Eagle is not a birdie clearly. So and Jordan is relatively capable. Especially there's a couple of par 5s that are very reachable on the course in Phoenix. That's a mild worry.
But if he misses an eagle attempt, he should have a pretty good easy chip in for birdie.
Right, exactly. You just don't want to. You'll feel like you get screwed if he makes an eagle because that's just that will certainly.
That's not 2 birdies.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but that type of bet again, I have not thought about the Ertz side of it per se, but or some of the other football spots, but just for the heads up for the 2 listeners out there. there will be some.
Don't
There
make
will
fun
be
of
some,
this, man.
there will be some low scoring.
We can't get to 100 without starting with 2, guys.
That's true. So, just my own 2 cents thrown in there.
2 cents to the 2 listeners.
There it is. That's what we do.
I mean, it's interesting because you're right. I mean, the Waste Management's always been kind of a party tournament.
Yeah.
That's the one in Arizona, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's always been kind of a party tournament where, these guys go out there, have fun,
Yeah.
The fans out there are having a blast.
And there's many of them. There's hundreds of thousands. They had 630,000 fans last year.
Jesus.
630. Oh, it's over 4 days. But, the 4
Still,
days
it's
of tournament,
crazy, yeah.
That's nuts. Yeah.
You probably think a third of that was probably on the last day alone.
Yeah, it very well could have been. In fact, on the par 3, on that the par 3 16th, I think they can seat almost like 50,000.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
Would not have guessed that.
It's nuts. So, and again, this course is gettable for that reason. It's a party, laid-back atmosphere. It's supposed to be a birdie fest. That's the point. You can hit the ball a mile out there on the course. There's not a lot of water, of course. There's not a lot of hazards. It's a score fest, as it should be. It's a great tournament. So. It's something to look out for. And
what about this one?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you can make this bet up until that point too.
8 a.m.
Right. So that's the thing that you can also be looking for is who's playing really well as well, who's in contention, what works best. And I know it's not a golf show. I'm not going to get into the golfing aspect of it, but certain guys play well in certain spots. Usually going in the final round or whatever, they have traditionally done really well as a favorite, done really well if they're laying in the weeds. So I think there's some absolute value here. Getting into latter part of Saturday into Sunday of when you can make this bet.
Now you talked about how this course is gettable for a lot of people, and
Yes.
a lot of the bets are 4th round score, birdies, etc. I look at Phil Mickelson, and his line is 4th round bogeys or worse.
And the Aguilar receptions. That's
the Aguilar receptions. What about something like that? I mean, does Phil generally not do well on this course?
No, he's got a very good record this course. But the issue with Phil is that he is erratic. And he goes low, but he doesn't go low in a similar fashion to Jordan Spieth generally goes low, doesn't make nearly as many bogeys. Whereas Phil will throw in a bogey or a double here and there, and yet can recover from that because he makes so many birdies and he plays so aggressively. He went to school in this area, and he still has a house there. He's very familiar with the course. I think he's a member at the club. Probably doesn't play there very often, but he has a very good record here. So it's interesting that you bring that up, and that's good, but I just don't – the bogeys are worse thing. It's a great prop. Whoever came up with that, that's fantastic because he is willing to make a bogey here and there for the cause, if you will, as he has. I mean, we all know that. It's Phil. He's
Sure.
Phil.
Now, it's hard to lean which way because, if the Patriots play good defense, effectively they could take Aguilar out.
True. That's true.
And the question is that if Phil has the round of his life and you bet Phil, you're dead to rights. But Nelson Aguilar could have one catch, whereas Phil Mickelson could have 0 bogeys.
He could.
I mean, when you lean one way or the other at this point, you feel like the average Mickelson bogey or worse could be what, 2, 3?
Yeah. I'm thinking in the 2 to 3 range. Again, I wanted to see the first few rounds he plays too, just to see kind of where things are at. But I think 2 to 3 is a pretty solid guess. So,
Interesting. I'm going to skip right over the soccer cross sports unless anybody has anything to say about those. Did you have any?
No, I'm just joking.
I got 6 of them. That was
actually my favorite bet now.
Those are my bread and butter.
Yeah.
La Liga.
Yeah, I don't even really know who.
I like the Liverpool yellow cards.
Yeah, I don't even know who Harry Kane is. I don't know who these people are. So, yeah. Okay.
An interesting one we got, topical. We have the Olympics coming up. And the prop bet, the only one they have that I see is who will have more. The Winter Olympics gold medals won by the U.S. or Eagles and Patriots first quarter points. Now, my initial look at that is the U.S. usually controls Olympic Games. They usually are the leader in medals. I don't know if specifically that goes necessarily to the winter, but generally they usually are pretty dominant in the Olympics. I would imagine they're going to get double-digit medals as far as gold medals. So if we're considering that this game's going to get to a slow start, this almost seems like too easy of a bet. What am I missing?
I don't have. Well, to me, I guess I'll speak. I don't know. I don't know the medal count for the Winter Olympics. I know it's much more competitive for the winter versus the summer. Clearly, I mean, there's a lot of the Scandinavian countries and there's no Russia though. Correct? Are they not competing?
They are competing, but they're not competing as Russia. They're competing as the athletes from Russian something. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I think it's maybe under the Russian Federation.
Yeah, something like that.
All right.
100 or no, wrong.
But another thing to think about, though, is that we don't have any instant gratification with this bet. We're going to have to wait. I mean, do we want to be waiting 3 weeks for a bet to be graded? To me, that just...
Sure, but if I feel like I have a strong lean on something, I don't know if I necessarily worry about the time frame. If I have the money to...
Okay.
I'm not saying it's... I get what you're saying, the instant gratification. You've hit on that point a lot, and you're not wrong, and I'm not discrediting
the
that.
Degenerate meter.
Yes. A lot of these bets are going to have instant gratification. A lot of these bets are going to take 4 hours to come through. A lot of these bets are going to take, weeks to come through. Like I told you, a buddy of mine who covers the Golden Knights has a bet from last year as far as the number of points in the game versus the number of total points that the Golden Knights would achieve, and he now has to wait until Sunday to cash that, or actually not even Sunday. He has to wait till the end of this season to cash that bet. So there are times where he's been waiting over a year to cash that bet. So
going back to the Winter Olympics, there's 102 events.
102 events that are medals.
Yes.
So your figure, if the
do we know what the U.S. did 4 years ago?
I can actually look at that right now. Actually,
just to have a starting point.
The United States got 9 in 2014.
There was only 98 events though.
Oh,
okay. So we've added 3 events.
Good to
so
know.
say they get one of those events. So now you're up to 10 on average. It's an interesting prop because I actually would have immediately thought United States gold medals in the Summer Olympics. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think the winter's very competitive.
Norway, Canada, United States, Russia all had 9 or more.
Yeah.
Netherlands, Germany, not far off with 8. The United States had 28 total medals. They had the most total medals, but they did not have the most gold medals.
Okay.
So figure U.S. for 10 medals, 10 gold medals at this point. You got to look at, do you feel like the first quarter points, Eagles and Patriots can go over 10?
That 10th one might matter, too. That's a football number. I like it.
Absolutely. So my initial thought, like I said, the more you dive into it, the Winter Olympics seemed like the no-brainer. 2 touchdowns touchdown each by the Eagles and the Patriots in the first quarter. I think they've got it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're betting 110 either way. It's a coin flip. What does Anthony like to say? It could go either way. I think you have a lot. I think you have a lot more instant gratification, Tony, than you think. Because as you're watching that Super Bowl, if it's 0-0, you can rip that ticket up.
Sure. No, and that makes sense. I was just looking at the first quarter line, and it's 9.5 total. Okay, yeah, that's wow.
So if you like the over in that first quarter, I would think you're going to probably lean Eagles Patriots first quarter points.
Right. Yeah, and that's sort of the thing. We know that the Patriots have never scored in the first quarter of a Super Bowl, so maybe historically you have to think, can Philadelphia carry this one themselves?
That's another factor to it.
Right.
I'm going to lean, if I had to put money on it, I'm going to lean Eagles Patriots first quarter points. I think we're going to get 14 to 17 in the first quarter. So.
Wow.
So I guess that also leads me to believe that the first quarter over.
You should just bet the over, right?
Yeah.
In the first quarter, yeah.
And then get more instant gratification than that. So.
That's the key to pretty much everything for me, so yes.
Yeah. He lives in an I want it now society.
Absolutely.
So. Here we go. Here's an interesting one. That's a lot of cross sport here. The Golden Knights and the Capitals and the MLS USL preseason game with the Las Vegas Lights. Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around all this. So you have the Montreal Impact at the Las Vegas Lights Football Club, and you have the Golden Knights at the Capitals, both games occurring on, the hockey games occurring on 2/4, which is the day of the Super Bowl, and the Lights games occurring on 2/10, which is about a week later. So you have the total goals of the Lights and the Knights versus the total made field goals of the Super Bowl.
So it's only the Las Vegas teams that we're worried about in this game.
Yeah, we're not worried about the Capitals, and we're not worried about the impact.
Then you take the field goals.
Really?
The Lights are going to get murdered on that field.
Yeah?
Really?
Absolutely murdered. I mean, the league that they're competing in is essentially a AAA type league. Like, it's a lower level league
Of the MLS?
than the MLS. And as far as I know, Montreal is pretty goddamn good. So I don't know that the Lights can score, which means you're relying solely on the Golden Knights to do this for you. Now, whether or not they're able to put it all together, you know, this is a really good Washington Capitals team. Braden Holtby, you would think, would want to redeem himself after a lackluster All-Star game.
Yeah.
So
That was pretty pitiful.
Yeah, so you know you're looking at the Golden Knights scoring 2, maybe 3, and then
It's a lot of goals, though. I mean, that's a lot of field goals.
Again, we go back to the Patriots play bend don't break, and I think Philadelphia might cover that one on their own.
So you're looking at, because the Lights should be terrible in your opinion, it's that prop's all relevant to the Golden Knights.
Yeah, that's the way that I would see it. That's
So you
my
like the
mindset
made
on it.
field goals.
Yeah, I would take the field goals in that one.
I assume they're going to have they'll have a line out for the soccer game, right? They'll have one for the Montreal Lights game.
Maybe.
Okay.
You would think, but you know, this is the type of thing. The UNLV just put out a thing not too long ago that was talking about the different sports and the percentage of the betting that went out there. The categories they used were football, baseball, basketball, parlays, and other. They didn't count hockey, they didn't count soccer, they didn't count anything else except that, because the other sports are so small that they
Right.
make up such a small percentage of the gambling that they don't matter. So this is the type of thing where even if they put out a line, you can't necessarily assume that Vegas knows what the hell they're talking about.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and it usually, a lot of places like that, if you can find a spot to hit until the book catches up. I mean, VGK was case in point. I mean, how many games were they underdogs and people were just crushing?
A dozen?
More than that, maybe.
No, they were favored against Detroit in game, what was it, 4 or
Four,
5
yeah.
of the season.
Yeah, they
Right, but I'm saying in a lot of games that they should not have won.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Blackhawks, Rangers. I mean, well, the Rangers, they were a favorite in that spot, but early in the season, they were dogs in the first 2 games.
Especially without a goaltender for a little while too, and they were still winning some games.
Yeah, for
But,
sure.
I mean, if we're going to use the hockey example, I'll go back to the game 3-4 years ago. This is my, ultimate sports betting story, because, I bet, $20 or $40 a game at most. There was a game, it was a playoff game between the Lightning and the Canadiens, and it was 3, 4, 5 years. I forget how long ago it was, but at that point, Tampa Bay was 7-0 against Montreal, and they were the best home team in the league. The game was being played in Tampa Bay, and the Lightning were plus 150. So, like I said, I bet $20 or $40 a game normally. I put over $500 on that game.
Wow.
And Tampa Bay crushed them. So, again, it's the type of thing where even if Vegas puts out a line, this is the type of sport where you don't know that Vegas knows what they're talking
I
about.
agree. Oh, yeah, you don't have to convince me of that. I believe in that thoroughly, especially the smaller sports that they don't get handled. They will make more mistakes there. Totally agree.
Yeah, a lot of these Westgate props seem to center around Vegas, which it's going to be cool because you can watch that game at the same time. And a lot of people who are betting locally are newly acquired Vegas Golden Knights fans, so they're going to be itching to jump up on the Vegas Knights train. A couple of other ones I see, just specific player-to-player props. Jonathan Marchessault's shots on goal versus Danny Amendola's number of receptions. Marchessault is a plus 130 in that spot. So Marchessault's a guy who's a focal point of the offense. Danny Amendola with Gronk in, I mean, obviously we know about his playoff success, but you look at Danny Amendola in an average game, 6-7 may be a good number. Is Marchessault going to be able to compete with that in terms of number of shots on actual goal?
I would lean Amendola in this one. The Marchessault line just seems. You're right. He is a focal point of the offense, but I think at this point, especially recently, it's Carlson on that line that's taking more of the shots.
Sure.
So, I gun to my head, I would go Amendola for that one.
Well, here's an interesting one for you. Tom Brady's interceptions versus Nate Schmidt's points.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
That's a tough one, because Nate Schmidt can disappear for 3 games offensively.
Absolutely, he can.
Or he could have a goal and 2 assists.
Yeah.
So they've definitely written these pretty well to make you kind of... You never want to obviously have a prop that you just... Obviously, Westgate doesn't put a prop that just gets blasted on one side. So these are interesting props. And obviously the juice changes. Nate Schmidt's plus 130 as far as points in that spot. You got James Neal shots on goal versus Nick Foles' touchdown passes and interceptions. Both of which could be extremely high, or both of which could be extremely low.
Yeah.
It could go either way, really.
There you go. Here's your Carlson bet right here.
Uh-oh.
William Carlson points is plus 110 against Gostkowski, minus 130 field goals made.
Field goals made. Carlson points
against the Capitals.
Carlson points against
Gostkowski field goals made. Take off your rubber band and make a bet on that one.
Oh. Ugh.
Shootout goals are excluded as well.
Yes, you're right.
Well, that's. I don't know that affects anything, but that is good to know.
Probably not, but
yeah. Man, I might go.
Let's not make a career out of this.
Yeah. No, this is the type of thing that you probably should have told me about off air, so I could have prepared as opposed to.
I texted him on Wednesday. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I figured I'd hit you with that one.
Yeah, no, that
it was 5 hours ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I really have to think about it, I might go Gostkowski because again, well, actually, shit, no. This really could
We'll come
go
back
either
to
way.
you. We'll come back to you.
This really could go either way.
Tony, what about the number of goals in the Knights game versus Tom Brady's touchdown passes?
Well, I probably can't add a whole lot to the hockey. I just sort of...
Let's just say for
watch
average,
games
they're going to
casually.
average 2 to 3 goals.
Sure. And I know they score more at home than away, and this is an away game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct? Okay.
You've already added more than you thought.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the only things I actually know. But, my thought of... I do think that touchdowns are going to be relatively low, whether they're passes, rushes, either side. I'm unsure of that. I mean, clearly, Brady is likely to throw more than Foles, but I do think that touchdowns are going to be harder to come by. So if my thought is that Brady's touchdown passes are I think maybe 2-ish, 3 absolute maximum, but I think it's more likely 1 or 2. I would probably err on the side of the goals, not knowing really much about that, but just assuming that my Brady thought is going to be lower than what the books is.
Well, then you probably would lean more towards this prop bet, and it's the Knights and the Capitals number of goals versus the Eagles and the Patriots number of touchdowns.
Yeah, there you go.
So that might be right up your alley. If you think that it's going to be low touchdown ratio for the Super Bowl, you got to figure the Knights and the Capitals are going to hover somewhere around the total, which is probably 5.5 to 6. So let's err on the side of 6. I think 6 is a lot of touchdowns in a football game.
I agree.
So if
especially
you're
the one that they're about to play, this is I think yes, for sure. I think there were some other ones that would make some sense. New England's had some definite shootouts this year, but I don't think it's going to be this one. So yeah,
Spike. Have you made your decision yet?
For that one, yes, I'm going Carlson because I don't know that Gostkowski is going to get too many opportunities to kick so many field goals. But for this, and for this one, I would take goals over the touchdowns.
Yeah, I like the goals in that one too because 6 touchdowns is a lot in any football game. So
Right.
if you're looking at Knights and Capitals, the ability to score for both of those teams is they have the ability to score high amounts of goals. So watch it be a 1-0 shootout victory.
Right, exactly. It'll be Ovechkin gets one, and that's
but the shootout goal counts as 1 goal.
Yes, that is true. But if it's 1-0 on a shootout, that's the only goal. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's look at potential Super Bowl MVPs.
I'm going with Dorsett.
Well, we got Dorsett. Is he on here? I think he's a part of the field.
He's got to be.
He's not on there. He's a part
He's
of
in the field.
He's in the field at 25-1.
Not great value. If you're
So
just looking
yeah,
for
it's
Dorsett.
unfortunate. You can get Danny Amendola for the same price. So. The obvious favorite is Tom Brady. Second favorite's usually Nick Foles is 3-1. Usually the quarterbacks are. Some interesting ones that I thought would be a little bit lower are like Deion Lewis. I thought would be closer to like 10, 15-1. He's 20-1. I thought Jay Ajayi would be a lot closer too. He's 25-1. Anybody that jumps off this page that provides value for somebody, that's not named Tom Brady or Nick Foles.
I think there might be something to be said for the narrative of LeGarrette Blount, playing in the former team. We know people sort of like stuff like that. If he blasts a couple, touchdowns and maybe is in the 60, 70-yard range, and I mean Philly has to win the game. Clearly, I get that, but
Right.
That might be a thing. We have that's clearly the spot where the quarterback, I think, is a lot less likely to be the shining beacon in this game, and somebody else can sort of emerge. And if Blount has a pretty wow type game where he maybe runs over a couple of people, even if it's for a few yards here and there, there's a lot of remembrance there. And 60-1 seems like some value.
Spike, you talked about Zach Ertz and his ability to control a game or dictate a game. He's 25-1. Do you see any value on maybe putting him there?
Not necessarily. For somebody like that to win an MVP, it's not just going to be 1 or 2 plays. They're going to have to that would get them the MVP. They would have to put up multiple catches for 100+ yards and at least 1 touchdown, if not more. Which is why, counter to everything that we have been talking about with this game being a kind of low-scoring, grinded-out type thing, if it does end up being more of a shootout and Brady does go gunslinger, I'm looking at Hogan at 60-1. That seems like the type of thing where if there is a receiver that can put up yards in chunks and, even on just 1 or 2 drives, that can really get a team either back into a game or really give them that lead from, making it a tight game to a more of a comfortable blowout type lead, Hogan's the guy that could do it. I mean, it would be Hogan or Cooks, but Cooks is going at 12-1. Hogan's at 60-1. Clearly the value's with Hogan.
Sure. Anthony, what about, is there any value to be had at Nick Foles? Because obviously everybody's going to be looking at Brady. If they win, he's more than likely the MVP choice. But if the Eagles happen to win, 3-1, I know it's plus money. Is there value at taking Nick Foles in that spot?
Doesn't seem like it's reasonable value. In my mind, it would take more of a team performance. Of course, it's always a team game, but I could see it being like a big performance out of Aguilar or something like that, and where Foles kind of gets tossed off to the side by one of his receivers' performance, all that. I mean, for me, Foles, I think he could be the MVP, but at 3-1, it doesn't seem like it's reasonable value. It could go either way.
That's it.
I bit my tongue so hard.
I wasn't going to be the first one.
I bit my tongue so hard. See, I think there's value in Nick Foles right there because if you're going to look at somebody who defeats the Patriots, it's going to take everything from Nick Foles to have the game of his life a la Blake Bortles last week, even though that wasn't enough to beat the Patriots. I can see Tony's point, with LeGarrette Blount or Jay Ajayi controlling the running game. I feel like there is value if you believe Philly can win this game. I believe there is value in Nick Foles, even despite only being 3-1. And all bets on these are action, whether, we talked about if they don't play, these bets are action whether he plays or not, as far as who.
Player must play.
Yeah.
No.
It says player must play.
I got all bets are action despite player not playing.
Oh, interesting.
So we've got, interesting, I've got the Westgate Sportsbook Online, you've got the Westgate,
the Bible.
You got the Bible.
It's one of those things that if you're really interested in it, at the window.
Maybe that's the Old Testament, it's the New Testament. So I wonder. I am curious.
Probably
I would
ask at the window.
Probably ask. Yeah, you should. If you go up and try for the Super Bowl MVP, you should probably ask because
for sure
we're looking at two different things. I see all bets are action despite player not playing, and you see
player must play for action. Yeah.
So interesting.
Completely,
completely opposite. It could go either way. Sorry, that one just wrote itself. That one was easy right there.
Does the field have to play for action?
They have to play on a field for action. Oh my goodness!
Wow.
Any other prop bets? We haven't even scratched, the surface of how much is in there. I can't, without looking at this Bible specifically, I can't stress to you enough the I don't want to say the thickness on it. I just did, so I guess.
The girth.
The girth.
Well, there's 30 sportsbook size pages of bets.
And they're front and back.
Yeah, so we're talking about both sides and longer than the normal 8.5 by 11. So that's a lot.
I like to think I'm longer than the normal too. So.
I thought your name was
Should we
Smallwood.
call her in and see?
I thought your name was Smallwood.
No, I said that's not what I want to be named. You do not want to be nicknamed Smallwood. But yeah, if you look through this book, you're going to find something that catches your eye, something that's worthy enough to take money out of your wallet and place a bet. And I think that's why Westgate does it, and all these other books are catching up. People enjoy what Tony said, the instant gratification of bam, no score in the first 6 minutes, bam, first field goal, brick or hit.
Oh, yeah.
As far as first Nick Foles pass, incompletion or completion, touchdown or interception. There's a lot of those. There's a lot of people who like to let their money ride. You and I probably agree. I don't like to let my money sit interest-free in anything, for any amount of time.
For sure.
So a lot of those, delayed prop bets may not be, something that catches the eye of a general bettor. But somebody who doesn't mind or somebody who's looking for a free lottery ticket back into Vegas, like, if you hit some long shot parlay with the, who knows, that has some serious plus money, it could buy you another trip to Vegas.
Yeah. Definitely. Absolutely. And you don't really want to be sending in those types of tickets. I think that's one you want to.
You don't mail that in, no.
Yeah, no. You're not mailing in that 16 parlay that comes home. That's just, no.
So, like I said, there's so many. Total receiving yards, they've broken it down for Alshon Jeffrey by increments of 10 you can bet on. Same with Zach Ertz, same with Aguilar, same with Hogan. Completions by Nick Foles, literally from 0 to 31. There are 31 different odds. 0 completions is 200 to 1, 1 completion 200, all the way down to 31 completions is 20 to 1. So it's just, the best odds you can get, or the worst odds you can get, is 21 completions for 8 to 1 odds. So, you can literally bet on the exact number of completions, down to the 1.
Yeah, you can pick the final score for each team.
Yeah, there is no shortage of availability to bet in this, and I'm sure every single bettor, both recreational, sharps or squares alike, can find something to place their money on. So, but let's talk about the main one. We talked about, Tony talked about, liking the 4.5 or not liking it either way. But we're going to do a Super Bowl preview, actually next week or so. Let's hope we do it before Sunday because there's a game Sunday. But your early thoughts, Anthony, you talked about betting the Patriots money line. What are your early thoughts on that before we get into a more in-depth discussion?
As the line continues to drop more and more, the more and more I like New England.
Yeah, sort of the same for me, although I hedged that a little bit because I have doubted Philadelphia in every game that they've played so far, so I'm worried that if I doubt them again, it's really going to come back to bite me in the ass.
That is true. You have doubted them all postseason, and it has bit you in the ass, but I've rid with them the whole postseason. I think this game is too big, the magnitude for Nick Foles. No disrespect to what he's done the past few weeks, but this game may get too big for him. And we're talking about Tom Brady, who's been to this game 7 times before, so it's basically another game for him. Although he will not, talk about it that way. He'll obviously stress the importance of playing in the Super Bowl, but he's become so status quo. I mean, if you look at it over his career, he's almost every other year been in the Super Bowl. It's crazy to think about.
It's just completely absurd, especially when you think like Robert Kraft bought this team in the mid-'90s, got them there in '96, and then all the success that they've had with Brady and Belichick. I mean, he's owned the team for, 23 years, been to the Super Bowl 9 times?
Yep.
I mean, that's
remarkable.
It's unbelievable.
It is. Well, gentlemen, this was fun. We'll obviously come back next week after the game and take a look at recap our prop bets and see where we went right and where we went wrong.
Oh, yes.
And check out how much instant gratification Tony actually got from his bets.
It will be very likely high, notwithstanding wins and losses. It's just going to be high.
So I know Anthony's plans for the Super Bowl. Tony, what are your plans for the Super Bowl?
That's a good question. I haven't necessarily thought about it that way. I don't know. I have nothing written in stone. I know one thing, and I guess we can say this to everybody out there too, that my bets will not be made like day of or right before. It's definitely the night before. Even some of the cross sport ones where you want some information, I will not be waiting until the end and getting in massive lines because that's no good.
Right.
So besides making sure bets are in by Friday or Saturday, I'm unsure. I don't know.
I'm curious on Saturday night, Sunday morning, how jammed the servers are going to be on the apps too. That'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on because, like I said, I like to wake up, roll over, make my bet, roll back over, and go to bed. I don't know if that's. I mean, William Hill has been pretty good about that, but every once in a while they gunk up a little bit. I can only imagine the magnitude of that on Super Bowl. And this one I can't wait. Spike, what are your plans for Super Bowl weekend?
Well, as
white walls with a white jacket.
Because I am born and bred Boston, born and bred New England fan, I can't watch Patriots Super Bowls with other people around. It's just it's too embarrassing for me because I'm no longer in control of my actions. My wife has to put out a dummy pre-broken remote because I will end up smashing or throwing the one that actually works that's around. I had a couple
That's love.
A couple of years ago, I had been hanging some artwork up around the walls and left a hammer out. I used the hammer to smash the table at one point.
You're like those guys in the YouTube videos that's just smashing things.
Dude,
we should set up a camera at your place just in case.
An absolute mess. No, I don't want that. Are you fucking kidding me? Absolutely not.
Okay.
We'll get you a straight jacket for Super Bowl Sunday.
If New England hadn't won, then I'd be having people over or going to a party somewhere, hanging out, kind of enjoying myself, enjoying the moment, the whole thing. When the Patriots are in it, no, fucking forget it.
Well, he's going to pull a Harry Houdini and just disappear for a little bit.
I mean, that's really what I have to do because otherwise it's just...
for the betterment of society.
The last time I had people over for a New England Super Bowl was the first matchup against the Giants. And
that didn't go well.
Yeah, and I was a mess.
That's when you realized you shouldn't have. You shouldn't be in public.
I flipped the love seat over. And I realized that these were people, and this was shortly after I moved to Vegas, and then these were people that I kind of knew, but not well enough that I should be acting.
Did you ever see them again?
That's the question.
No, as a matter of fact, they did move away, but I don't know if that was...
Why are you leaving Vegas? To get as far away from Spike as I possibly can.
He flipped over the love seat.
He cannot be trusted with New England sports.
This guy's nuts!
I am not a pleasant person to be around during some of these games.
Well, hopefully we'll come out on the right side and we won't have to listen to the police scanner for what you may have potentially...
I guarantee you I will get you an HOA noise violation at some point during this game.
Sweet. I cannot wait.
I've got a nice Mormon family living next door to me. I'm going to fucking horrify their children.
All 6 wives are going to knock on your door. Can you keep it down? So, anyways, well, gentlemen, obviously this was fun. We'll have to check it out next week and see, like I said, what becomes of our prop bets. So let's wrap it up here. Any parting thoughts on anything you've talked about today or wanted to get off your chest?
Nothing specific from me. Obviously good to be here and be doing this for the first time. Looking forward to it. But I will make I guess I'll close with a final score prediction. We might as well since we're doing this.
Okay.
I'm going to go with 20-17 New England will be the final score.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So he likes New England and the under.
Interesting.
Yes. If I had to make it, that might be a prop that is possible. I don't know. So there you go.
It is a specific score.
It's a specific score.
There you
so,
go.
Well, you can pick the final score for both
teams.
Individually.
There you go.
20 for New England is 15-1, and 17 for the Eagles is 10-1.
So there you go.
Okay. All right, so I can get action on that.
There you go. All right, gents. Well, we will wrap it up here. Thank you very much for all your inputs, insight, and hopefully our fans and listener don't light their money on fire with our picks. But this has been a special edition of the Vegas Squares Prop Bet Podcast. Catch us on all of our social media outlets, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We are on 12 Ounce Sports Radio. You can catch us every Tuesday and Saturday. Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. We are actually happy to be a part of a new network, Forward Mile Podcast Network. We'll be starting up there in just a few weeks. So take a look at them. Follow them on Twitter at Forward Mile Pod. And also follow 12 Ounce Sports at 12 Ounce Sports. But what are we on? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Our home website.
Our website is vegassquares.com. You can email us at vegassquares@gmail.com, all that good stuff. But we thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you again this week when we record our Super Bowl podcast. Thanks for listening.